A service of KIBMradio.com, the Internet's home for an all old-time radio.
And now, Backstage Wife, the story of Mary Noble and what it means to be the wife of a famous star. A few minutes ago, Larry Noble had a disturbing telephone call from Maud Marlowe, character actress and family friend, urging him to wire Mary at once to ask her to fly out from New York to join him in Hollywood, where he's making a picture. Right now, as he considers this, in his dressing room on the Marco and Franklin lot where he's removing his makeup, he thinks,
I wish I knew what to do. What if I take Maud's advice and beg Mary to come out here? What would she say to that? Would she do it just to help me, even though she doesn't want to go on with our marriage? Heaven knows how much I want her here, but not just as a favor to me. This is just Maud Marlowe's way of trying to hold our marriage together, in spite of what Mary wants. Don't let her down, she said. As if I wanted to. As if it weren't tearing me apart to think of losing her. But I certainly owe her the right to do what she wants. Come in.
Larry, I want to talk to you.
Well, Mr. Marco. Sit down. Just taking off my makeup.
I can't figure out what's happened to you the last couple of days.
What do you mean?
Well, it seems like you don't have your mind on the picture. You're acting nervous. A couple times you blew up and we had to do retakes.
Yes, I know. I've been offbeat the last few scenes.
What's the matter, Larry? What's on your mind?
Oh, nothing I can explain, Sam. I've been kind of jumpy, I guess.
It don't seem like you to blow a line. Not a Broadway actor of your reputation. It's all right for some of these Hollywood actors that aren't used to memorizing a whole play. I don't like to see you getting jittery right here when we're in the toughest part of our script.
I'll be all right from now on, Sam. Don't worry about it.
My partner Franklin and I have big plans for you, Larry. Like I told you before. Wouldn't like to have anything get in the way of those plans. Right now, I don't know what to think. Well, maybe you've been listening to too many outside agents or something. Maybe it's got your mind off the job here.
No. It's nothing like that.
Well, something's wrong. I can see that. It shows up in the rushes. Maybe you'd like to see what I mean over in the projection room.
No, I know what you mean. I also know that I'll be all right from now on. I've been preoccupied, that's true, but it's a personal matter.
Now, don't get yourself tangled up with a lot of outsiders, Larry. Not while you're in the middle of a picture. Look, you come on over with me now, and let's take a look at those rushes.
I'll be right with you. Just as soon as I get cleaned up, it won't take me more than a few minutes. But first I've got to send out a message.
Never mind about sending messages. They can wait. This picture's the biggest thing you got to think about right now. I'll be waiting over at the projection room.
The biggest thing I've got to think about now. That's all you know about it.
Meantime, in Rosehaven, Long Island, Mary is packing her bags, getting ready for her cruise to the Caribbean on Rupert Barlow's yacht. Tom Bryson, the famous playwright and close family friend, has returned again to try to persuade Mary to change her mind. As he sits in a chair by the window, he watches Mary until...
I'm the persistent type, Mary. And I'm going to hang around to the last minute waiting for you to call off this crazy trip.
It's no use, Tom. I know you think you're doing the right thing, but my mind is made up.
What if Larry suddenly sent word that he wanted you to join him? What would you do?
Do you have to ask that?
Well, he might, you know. And he'd find out how you were sailing the high seas with Rupert Barlow and his friends.
Larry isn't going to send me any message to join him, Tom. And if I sat around here waiting, every minute would be agony. He made it clear enough that he doesn't want me to come to Hollywood. That's all there is to it.
You never know. Of course, if this Rupert Barlow really means so much to you, well, then that's something else.
Rupert is a friend. He's been very kind and good to me all the time I was in the hospital. And he's asked me to go on this cruise because he thinks it'll be good for me.
He's also been trying for a long time to add your name to his long list of romantic conquests. Maybe he thinks this'll do the trick.
Tom, that's a hateful thing to say. And it isn't true. Just because newspaper gossip writers like Marty Rufus have tried to build up a story doesn't mean that you have to believe it. Well, you know me too well for that.
I also know what kind of a guy Rupert Barlow is. I know you'd be better off keeping away from him.
Oh, for heaven's sake, Tom, don't be so melodramatic. You behave as if Rupert Barlow were going to kidnap me and take me off to sea.
Well, that might not be so far wrong at that, Mary.
With a whole group of friends aboard? Plus my nurse from the hospital, Miss Clark, and Rupert's housekeeper, Julia Dixon? Don't you think I'll be quite safe, even if your ridiculous theories were right?
Oh, I can see it's no use. You won't get it through your head that this guy is poison.
Because I know better. What makes you think that a man with all his wealth and position would be so interested in me? He has so many far more exciting and attractive people running after him.
How should I know why he's so set on charming you? Maybe it's because you're the first woman who's ever turned him down.
I haven't turned him down, Tom. There's never been any occasion. Rupert and I are friends.
And what if he wanted to change that, Mary? Would you be interested?
Why do you keep asking such ridiculous questions?
Well, let's put it this way. What about Larry? I know he's hurt you desperately, but you're having a bad time getting over it. But underneath all that, you still love the guy? Would you go back to him if he asked you to?
I'd go to him in a minute, Tom. There won't ever be anyone for me except Larry. Can't you see that's what hurts so much? To know that my whole life is wrapped up in him and that he doesn't want me. Don't you see that I have to make some kind of break? To get away anywhere. Just to try to get hold of myself. I want to get away from everything here that reminds me of Larry. It's the only chance I have to build up courage to face the future. Tom, I'd go to pieces waiting here. I can't let my son see the way I feel. He's too young to understand. But he'd know something was wrong. Tom, I just can't face it alone. Maybe it's cowardly of me, but I have to get away.
All right, honey, all right. I won't say any more. Maybe you're right at that. I only wish I could take Larry Noble by the throat right now.
Larry isn't to blame, Tom. This is something that's too much for him. In a way, I understand it. He can't help being reminded of Claudia Vincent and the terrible mistake he made in trusting her.
Well, maybe you made the worst mistake of your life when you saved him from that murder trial, Mary.
No. You don't believe that, and neither do I. I had to prove that Claudia Vincent was guilty of Oliver Wilson's murder.
And risk your own life doing it? What if your face had been disfigured? What if you'd had to live out the rest of your days like that?
Then I'd have wanted to set Larry free. So you see, it all comes back to the same thing.
I wish above everything that I could take Larry's place. Or even inspire a small segment of the love you've given him, Mary.
You and Maud Marlowe are my dearest friends, Tom. You always will be.
No, it's not quite the same thing.
I can't help that.
I know, Mary. How would it be if I moved out here while you're away and kept an eye on things?
Tom, would you do that?
Sure. I could work out the kinks in my new play, get it in shape, and I can't think of a better place to do it.
Oh, it would be wonderful for me. I'd feel so much easier in my mind to know you were here. Phoebe could look after you, and Larry Jr. would be delighted.
All right, Mary. I'll take over while you're gone. I'll be the man of the house. Probably the closest I'll ever get to it anyhow.
And meantime, Rupert Barlow is talking to Julia Dixon, his attractive housekeeper, in the library of Rupert's luxurious home in nearby Oyster Bay.
I came out to tell you that I'll be leaving tomorrow for a cruise, Julia. Victor has packed my clothes. We're ready to sail.
I wondered if you'd bother to tell me, Rupert, or if you'd just go without any word.
Oh, of course you know I wouldn't do that. I haven't been able to let you know before this because I wasn't sure.
I see. Are you sailing alone, or have you invited anyone to go with you?
I've invited a few friends.
Oh? Who are they?
Some of the men from the club. I don't think you'd know them, Julia.
You mean to say this cruise is going to be a stag affair?
Yes, of course. We're interested in fishing.
We expect to go out for marlin, sailfish, just a rough and tumble kind of business. I thought you'd understand that when I didn't invite you to come along, Julia.
I didn't expect you to ask me, Rupert. I hadn't considered it.
We'll get a party of friends later in the season, when I get back. And we'll have a really gala time, all right?
Yes, of course.
I promised these fellows a fishing trip for a long time, and they've been at me to set a date. You understand that, don't you, Julia?
Yes, Rupert. I understand perfectly.
Rupert Barlow looks anxiously at Julia Dixon to see if there's a double meaning in her words. But she looks back without a change of expression, and he prepares to leave as quickly as possible. Well, be sure to be listening tomorrow to Backstage Wife, the story of Mary Noble and her husband Larry Noble, famous Broadway star.
The story you're about to hear is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Fatima Cigarettes, best of all king-size cigarettes, brings you Dragnet on both radio and...
You're a detective sergeant. You're assigned to robbery detail. An ex-convict is accused of robbery and murder. 4 witnesses identify him as the killer. The man's arraigned in municipal court and held to answer. Your job? Investigate.
Fatima, America's first, largest-selling blended cigarette. Now, king size.
See the difference, taste the difference, smoke the difference. And in Fatima, the difference is quality.
See the difference. Fatimas are 21% longer.
Taste the difference. Enjoy Fatima's extra mildness. Much different, much better flavor and aroma.
Smoke the difference. Get all the advantages of extra length, plus Fatima quality, which no other king-size cigarette has.
Yes, in Fatima, the difference is quality.
Definitely the best quality in its class, but the same price as the cigarette you're now smoking.
So why wait? Switch to Fatima today. Each king-size Fatima gives you a long, extra mild and soothing smoke with the added protection of Fatima quality. Buy Fatima.
Dragnet, the documented drama of an actual crime. For the next 30 minutes, in cooperation with the Los Angeles Police Department, you will travel step by step on the side of the law through an actual case transcribed from official police files. From beginning to end, from crime to punishment, Dragnet is the story of your police force in action.
It was Wednesday, March 12th. It was cold in Los Angeles. We were working the day watch out of robbery detail. My partner's Ed Jacobs. The boss is Captain Didion. My name's Friday. We were on the way over from the office, and it was 10:43 a.m. when we got to the 3rd floor at the Hall of Justice. Municipal Court, Department 82.
You see him, Joe?
I think so, yeah. That's him up front behind the DA's table.
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Leo.
Oh, hi, Friday. Jacobs. Pull up a chair.
Yeah, thank you. Who's on the stand first, do you know?
Victim's wife.
Oh.
People versus St. Clair.
People ready. In this case, Your Honor, we'd like to proceed with number 23548.
You may proceed. Is the defendant ready?
Defendant's ready, Your Honor. Call Agnes Holloway.
Agnes Holloway to the stand.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give in the matter now pending before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name, please.
Agnes Holloway.
Calling your attention to the 4th day of March of this year, Mrs. Holloway. Did you see the defendant in your place of business at 2301 Mailer Avenue?
Yes, sir.
What time of day did you first see him at that location?
It was around 9:30.
Will you tell us what you saw the defendant do?
For the purpose of the record, may we ask whether that was in the morning or the afternoon?
Was that in the morning or in the p.m.?
P.m.
Will you tell us what you saw the defendant do and what you heard him say at that place?
You mean before the holdup?
At 9:30. Please tell us what occurred.
Well, I came in about 9:30 at the place. He was already sitting there at the bar.
Continue.
I came in and sat down at the end of the bar. He was sitting about 5 stools from the door. A friend of mine, Doris Fenwick. She's here now. Doris was sitting there, and I went over and talked to Doris for a while. The man didn't say anything. He was just sitting there.
Did you see him drinking anything?
Yes, he was drinking scotch and soda.
You're the wife of George Holloway, deceased. Is that correct?
Yes.
Was he present then?
Beg your pardon?
Was your husband, George Holloway, present at that time?
Yes, he was tending the bar.
By that, do you mean that your husband, yourself, and the defendant were the only persons present?
No, my friend Doris Fenwick. There was a sailor there, too. I don't know who he was. He sat next to the defendant, so
What occurred then?
as we were ready to close the front door, my husband noticed the light in the men's washroom.
I move that go out. What her husband noticed as a conclusion to the witness.
It may go out.
Well, anyway, my husband went back in to put the light out. And Doris Fenwick and I went out to the sidewalk, and so did the sailor. And the fellow did, too.
The defendant did.
Yes. In a minute, I went back inside to see what my husband was doing, and the defendant followed me back in. I was about as far as the music machine. He put his arm around me, and he had a gun right here. He said, "Lady, this is a stick-up."
Could you describe the gun you saw?
No, I just saw it look like a pistol to me. I couldn't tell you the make of it.
I move that go out, if Your Honor, please, what it looked like.
I know it was a gun.
The motion will be denied.
You were inside the building when the defendant did that.
Yes. He said, "Keep quiet or I'll kill you."
And where was Miss Fenwick then?
She was out on the sidewalk, talking to the sailor, I think. Doris was expecting her husband to come on the streetcar.
I move that go out.
Miss Fenwick was out on the sidewalk, may stay in, and the balance may go out.
What did the defendant do after that, Mrs. Holloway?
He said, "I will shoot you if you don't keep quiet." He made me walk backwards to where my husband was, and I said, "Johnny, this man has a gun. He says this is a stick-up." And the man said, "Shut up." And he made my husband put his hands up.
Were you in fear of the gun at that time?
No, I didn't have any fear.
Did you believe the defendant would injure you with a gun?
I wasn't afraid. I thought, well, it's a hold-up, and we'll give him the money, and that's all there is to it.
All right. Continue.
Well, when we got to the back room, my husband was trying to open the safe, and he said, "Hurry up. I have your wife covered. I'll kill her if you don't hurry."
The defendant said that.
Yes, and my husband said, "Don't get nervous. You can have anything we have, but don't shoot her." Then my husband got the safe open and took out the money bag and handed it to the man, the defendant. He grabbed it, and then he shot my husband twice.
The defendant shot your husband twice.
Yes,
Do you know what the contents of the money bag were?
about $160.
At any time did you give this defendant authority or your consent to take that money?
No, sir.
The taking of the money was against your will, is that correct?
Yes.
How soon after was it that the officers arrived at the location?
It was about 7 or 8 minutes after that.
Your husband was removed to the hospital?
Yes.
Do you know when your husband died?
He died on the 7th, Friday, 6 o'clock.
You mean on the 7th of March of this year?
Yes, 6 a.m.
Did you see your husband in the coroner's office?
Pardon?
Did you see your husband after death in the coroner's office?
No, I saw him in the hospital.
After death, did you see your husband downstairs in the coroner's office?
No, my son did.
Did you see your husband after death?
Yes, at the mortuary, Monday the 10th, at the mortuary.
And the person you viewed in death was the same Charles A. Holloway who you knew in life as your husband?
Yes, sir.
Do you know Grace Thompson?
Yes, sir. She works for me and my husband.
Was she present at your place of business on this evening?
Yes,
When did she leave there, do you know?
about 5 minutes to 12, midnight.
Can you fix the precise time when your husband was shot?
About 5 minutes after 12.
5 minutes after 12. How many times was the gun fired?
Twice.
How close was the gun to your husband, Charles Holloway?
Must have been about 2 feet.
Do you know Marion Shaw?
Yes,
Was she present on the premises that evening?
she was present that evening.
Do you know Mrs. Sam Garber?
Yes.
Was she present on the premises that evening?
Yes, sir. And that sailor was there, too. I didn't know him, though.
All that you've related occurred in the county of Los Angeles, state of California?
Yes, sir.
Cross examine.
May I have a drink of water, please?
Bailiff? Would you like to rest a while, Mrs. Holloway?
Yes, please.
We have a short recess before the cross-examination.
Joe? Ed? Yeah, Leo. Probably won't get to us for a while. You want to go out for a smoke? Yeah, it's fine with me. Okay.
What's your idea on it, Leo?
I don't know. Not to have him bound over to Superior Court.
No, I mean, you think St. Clair's the right man?
Got me. Yeah, just one good piece of physical evidence, I'd feel a lot better about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks.
Here you go. Light?
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
How about St. Clair's alibi? All the angles checked, huh? All of them. Doesn't hold much water. Can't prove it's a lie, can't prove it's the truth.
Sure hate these things. Don't know which way to go. 4 identifying witnesses, and we know how wrong they can be.
What about that sailor who was supposed to be in the bar at the time? I know homicide didn't do any good. How about you, fella? No, same, Leo. Nothing yet. He's the only one who really got a close look at the killer besides the wife, I mean. Killer bumped into him when he ran out of the bar.
Yeah.
If anyone could identify the right man, the sailor could. Well, nobody at the bar saw him before that night. Nobody's seen him since. There's not a trace of him. Sure, our best bet. If we could find him, we might put a foundation under the thing. Yeah, I'll put in with you. There's just one problem. Yeah, it's a big Navy. Where do we find him? When 58-year-old tavern owner Charles Holloway was shot and fatally wounded in a holdup on March 4th, there were 5 people in the immediate vicinity. Holloway's wife, a waitress at the tavern, 2 women customers, and an unidentified sailor. Soon after the shooting, the scene of the crime was gone over thoroughly for all physical evidence, but besides the 2 fatal bullets, none was found. The preliminary investigation failed to yield any further leads. A search was started for the missing witness, the unidentified sailor. The 4 known witnesses were brought downtown, where they checked through volumes of pictures of ex-convicts recently released from the state penitentiaries. All of them identified the mugshot of Harold St. Clair, a recent parolee from Chino, where he'd served time for armed robbery. St. Clair was brought in immediately and questioned. He failed to establish an alibi for his whereabouts the night of the holdup and murder. He was arraigned in municipal court, and at his preliminary hearing, the first prosecution witness, the wife of the murdered man, Agnes Holloway, singled him out as the killer. By experience, the working detectives found that identifying witnesses under the strain of being present at a horrible crime can often be mistaken in their identification. In this instance, there wasn't anything else we could do. It was all we had. 11:18 a.m., the preliminary hearing resumed. The witnesses took the stand in turn, and all of them tabbed St. Clair as the murderer. Ed and I testified as the arresting officers. At 3:25 that afternoon, the prosecution rested the case for the people. St. Clair's lawyer offered no defense for the time being.
Your Honor?
Mr. Alexander?
This time the people move that case number 23529 be dismissed on the grounds that it states in substance...
23529? Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor. Dismissed on the grounds that it states in substance the offense covered in the present case. 23529 covers the offense of robbery and assault with intent to commit murder under the present victim in our case here, Charles Holloway. He was not dead at the time this case 23529 was filed. Subsequent to its filing, he died, and the murder count accomplished that complaint.
Let the record show that on the motion of the district attorney in the case of People versus Harold R. St. Clair, number 23529, that case is dismissed. Declaring to me that the offenses in the within deposition mentioned, to wit, count 1, murder, a felony, and count 2, robbery, a felony, have been committed, and that there is sufficient cause to believe the within named defendant, Harold R. St. Clair, guilty thereof, I order that he be held to answer to the same, and that he be committed to the custody of the sheriff of Los Angeles County without bail.
In the 17 days intervening between St. Clair's preliminary hearing and his arraignment in Superior Court, Ed and I, along with Sergeant Stoner, Beeson, and Leo Tracy, continued our investigation of the case. Physical evidence to either prove or disprove the case against St. Clair was not to be had. We concentrated on trying to find the all-important missing witness to the killing, the unidentified sailor. We got out an APB along with special letters and bulletins for distribution to local Navy Yard commandants as well as Navy Department officials in Washington requesting help in locating him. It went slow. The day before St. Clair's Superior Court arraignment, we got our first lead, but not from where we expected. A 2-time robbery loser, Lester Jaffe, who bore a close resemblance to St. Clair, was arrested at a check-cashing agency on South Hoover trying to pass a forged check. He had several prior arrests and convictions for burglary and ADW, and a check of his package showed that he had violated his parole. A .38 caliber S&W revolver found on Jaffe was delivered to Russ Camp in ballistics for examination and comparison. The next day, Monday, March 29th, St. Clair came up for his arraignment in Superior Court. Ed and I were there.
St. Clair. Defendant is present and ready, Your Honor.
Arraign the prisoner.
Harold R. St. Clair, is that your true name?
That's right.
Harold R. St. Clair, by information number 23549, you're charged in count 1 with the crime of murder, in that on or about March 4th of this year you did willfully, unlawfully, and feloniously, and with malice aforethought, murder one Charles A. Holloway, a human being. To this charge, how do you now plead, guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
In count 2 of the same information, you're charged with the crime of robbery, in that on or about March 4th of this year you did rob one Charles A. Holloway. To that charge, how do you now plead, guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Joe the bailiff.
Oh, yeah.
He's motioning to you. Phone call, I guess. Must be for you.
Yeah, thanks, Ed.
Gentlemen, have you agreed on what date is convenient for trial?
No agreement as yet, Your Honor.
Harris, a phone call for you, Sergeant. Right here. Okay, thank you. Friday talking. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is that right? Yeah, okay, Russ. As soon as we finish here. Yeah, right. Bye.
Joe, Alex here wants to know about a trial date. Any ideas?
Well, we better get all the time you can, Alex. We're going to need it.
Anything you say? What's the matter? We got trouble?
We just had a call from Russ Camp and ballistics.
Yeah.
I figure we got a whole new case to build.
What do you mean?
Well, the man we've got, St. Clair.
Yeah?
Maybe he's taking the rap for somebody else.
You are listening to Dragnet, authentic stories of your police force in action. Fatima, America's first largest-selling blended cigarette, now king size.
See the difference. Fatima, 21% longer. Taste the difference. Smoke the difference. And in Fatima, the difference is quality.
Yes, you get all the advantages of extra length, plus Fatima quality, which no other king-size cigarette has.
Friends, to show our confidence in Fatima, to convince you quickly, dramatically, that Fatima is the best of all king-size cigarettes, we make this money-back guarantee.
Buy a pack of Fatimas. Enjoy Fatima quality, extra mildness, and superbly blended tobaccos.
If you're not convinced Fatima is better than the king-size cigarette you're now smoking, just return the pack and the unsmoked Fatimas before April 1st, and we'll give you your money back plus postage. Fatima, Box 37, New York 1.
Remember, each king-size Fatima gives you a long, extra mild, and soothing smoke with the added protection of Fatima quality.
Buy Fatima in the bright, sunny yellow pack. Best of all king-size cigarettes.
March 29th, Monday, 4:15 p.m. After the arraignment of Harold St. Clair in Superior Court, Ed and I checked with Russ Camp in ballistics. He said he'd run tests on the .38 S&W revolver taken from robbery forgery suspect Lester Jaffe the day before. Comparison microscopic examinations of test bullets fired from the gun taken from Jaffe and the 2 slugs which had been removed from the body of tavern owner Charles Holloway matched. After checking with Brereton at the CII Bureau in Sacramento, we discovered new additions to Jaffe's long criminal record. We also found out his known M.O. corresponded closely to that of the man who robbed and murdered Mr. Holloway. At a special show-up of both St. Clair and Jaffe, the close resemblance of the two became apparent to the 4 identifying witnesses. They frankly admitted their mistake and positively identified Jaffe as the killer. Intensive investigation during the next 3 weeks uncovered enough evidence and testimony against Jaffe by associates and informers to give us a good foundation for a murder conviction. But we were still without a lead to one of our most essential witnesses, the unidentified sailor. The first suspect, Harold St. Clair, was cleared of the charge, but detained on a warrant from the Denver Police Department. After arraignment and preliminary hearing in municipal court, the arraignment in Superior Court, Lester Jaffe went on trial for the Holloway killing on June 2nd. Dr. West, the autopsy surgeon, was first to be called by Assistant District Attorney Adolph Alexander. He stated the results of the autopsy on Mr. Holloway and testified as to the cause of death. John Maurer, the police surveyor, was next. He produced the various diagrammatic drawings of the murder scene. The third day of the trial, June 5th.
Garber woman's phone back on. Friend of Miss Holloway?
Oh, yeah.
Mrs. Samuel Garber. Be seated.
Proceed with the cross-examination.
Mrs. Garber, at the time you testified against the former suspect, Harold St. Clair, you were just as positive then, were you not, that the hold-up man who killed Mr. Holloway was Harold St. Clair?
Yes, I was, but I also said he didn't have the same type eyes.
You were absolutely sure about Harold St. Clair then, weren't you?
Yes, I guess I was.
And you identified St. Clair and testified a number of times during that examination that St. Clair was the man. Is that right?
I said he resembled the man.
You said he was the man, didn't you?
I said I thought he resembled the man.
You also said there was no doubt of it, didn't you? That the hold-up man was Mr. St. Clair.
Well, I guess so. I don't know.
You don't know?
No, I guess I don't. I don't remember. I'm not sure.
Mrs. Garber, are you sure you remember the man you saw sitting in the bar that night?
Well, I don't know. I've got them both mixed up. I guess I'm not sure.
During the next 2 days, the other three identifying witnesses were called to testify and, like Mrs. Garber, were badgered by the defense attorney unmercifully. Despite the efforts of Alexander, the prosecuting attorney, it was apparent the jury was being swayed heavily in favor of the defendant. Even the full day and a half Ray Pinker from the crime lab spent on the stand seemed to have little effect in counteracting the damage done by the confused testimony. To prepare the jury for Russ Camp's expert report and for the presentation of scientific facts about the lethal bullets in the murder gun found on Jaffe at the time of his arrest, Pinker and Assistant District Attorney Alexander gave the jury a thorough briefing on the fundamentals of ballistics. They also pointed out the scientific value of ballistics in determining the guilt or innocence of a defendant. On Thursday, June 12th, Russ Camp took the stand as a prosecution witness and, under questioning, presented the findings of the various tests he'd run on the alleged murder weapon.
Mr. Camp, sometime after you had obtained People's Exhibit 13, did you fire a test bullet or several test bullets from it in the crime laboratory?
I did.
Did you make a comparison of any of those test bullets with Exhibits 3 and 3A, the bullets which killed Charles Holloway?
Yes, I did.
Now, in making your comparison and examination under the microscope, after you had completed the mechanical part of your work, and after you had completed your examination of the observable and comparable sections of the fatal bullets with the test bullet fired from People's Exhibit 13, did you come to any conclusion with respect to the Holloway fatal bullets?
Yes, I did.
And what was that conclusion?
The conclusion was that the fatal bullets, the Holloway fatal bullets, People's Exhibit number 3 and 3A, were fired through the barrel of People's Exhibit number 13.
After another hour of testifying, Russ Camp left the stand. His ballistics report on the murder gun had made an impression on the jury, but we couldn't be sure it was enough to balance the setback the prosecution received from its own witnesses. As far as we were concerned, Jaffe was the guilty man. There wasn't a doubt about it. But the case against him was apparently inconclusive as far as the jury was concerned. The defense attorney obviously had heard about the unidentified sailor who was also present at the scene of the killing. He charged outright in the court that the district attorney was purposely preventing the appearance of the unknown sailor as a witness and was concealing his identity. As he told the jury, the prosecution was afraid that the testimony of their alleged silent witness would damage its case. Meantime, our intensive search for the missing seaman was still underway. Despite half a dozen favorable prosecution witnesses, the case for the people appeared to be on the losing end going into the closing days of the trial. Tuesday, June 17th, one of the final defense witnesses was a Mrs. Albert Dolan, who presented a fair alibi for Jaffe. She claimed Jaffe was at night school at the time of the Holloway killing.
Would you say of your own knowledge that on the night of March the 4th, Mr. Jaffe was at the school until midnight?
Yes, he was.
When you left the school, did you go home alone or with somebody?
My husband and I drove home with Mr. Jaffe.
Anything else that you can remember?
Let me think.
Sure reads a convincing story, huh?
Yeah, I wonder what the connection is.
I don't know. Sure got plenty of them. What do you figure, Joe? The jury, you think we got a chance?
I don't know. Don't bet on it.
Ed, Joe.
Oh, hi, Leo.
Hi. Going bad?
Could be a lot better.
It's getting that way. Just got a call from Wilmington over at the squadron.
Oh, what about?
Sailor we've been looking for. We found him.
Before we left the courtroom, Ed and I briefed the Assistant District Attorney Alexander on the latest development. He put in a special order to the county jail for Harold St. Clair. Ed and I went across the street and met with a long missing murder witness in the homicide squad room. The sailor identified himself as Seaman First Class Roy Maslin. He told us that about 3.5 weeks before, he'd happened to see a copy of the bulletin we'd gotten out on him. He checked with his commanding officer and was returned to the mainland from his post on Midway Island. 3:22 p.m., we returned to the courtroom along with Seaman First Class Roy Maslin and conferred with Assistant District Attorney Alexander. The first murder suspect, Harold St. Clair, had already been brought downstairs to the courtroom from the county jail. He was placed at the opposite end of the counsel table from the defendant, Lester Jaffe.
May we approach the bench, Your Honor?
Come forward.
Your Honor, we've just now located a witness in this case. He's in the armed services and must report back for duty tonight. May we have permission to call this witness out of turn?
Permission granted.
Oh. All right, son.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give in the matter now pending before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name, please.
Seaman First Class Roy Maslin, United States Navy.
Be seated.
Are you acquainted with the Tavern Cafe at 2301 Naylor Avenue?
Yes, I am.
Were you there on the evening of March 4th of this year?
Yes, I was there a few minutes before midnight.
Will you tell the court in your own words what happened on the premises that night?
Well, it was just a couple of minutes before midnight. People who ran the place said they were closing up, so I had a nightcap. Shot dice for the drinks with this guy next to me. I won.
Who was this man?
I didn't know who he was.
After you had your drinks, did you leave the bar?
Yes, I did. The other guy stayed there. I went out to the sidewalk and stood there talking with one of the gals I saw in the bar, and then heard a couple of shots fired. Somebody inside the joint screamed and hollered or something. I was just going to the door to get inside, and this man came rushing out. He hit me square on and went down. I remember seeing him run down the street, the same guy I was drinking with.
Would you recognize this man if you saw him again?
Yes, sir, I would.
Is that man in this courtroom now?
Yes, sir.
Will Your Honor please direct the defendant to stand alongside of Mr. St. Clair so that this witness may properly identify the man involved?
Mr. Jaffe, will you stand up, please? Stand to the right of Mr. Sinclair.
Will you step down from the stand, please, Mr. Maslin, and place your hand on the shoulder of the man who was in the bar with you the night of March 4th?
Yes, sir. This is the man, Jaffe.
Fast work, sailor.
Really burned up. Guess he'd like to kill me, huh?
Well, you're not the only one, son.
What?
Wait till they read him the verdict.
The story you have just heard was true. The names were changed to protect the innocent.
On June 21st, the jury retired to deliberate the case. In a moment, the results of that deliberation.
And now, here is our star, Jack Webb.
Thank you, George Fenneman. Friends, I'd like you to buy a pack of Fatimas on my say-so. I'm convinced that once you see the difference, taste the difference, smoke the difference, you'll switch to Fatima for good. Because in Fatima, the difference is quality. Each king-size Fatima gives you a long, extra mild and soothing smoke with the added protection of Fatima quality. Buy Fatima, best of all king-size cigarettes.
Lester Carl Jaffe was found guilty of murder in the first degree. He was executed in the lethal gas chamber at the State Penitentiary, San Quentin, California.
Exchange Clubs sponsor Crime Prevention Week to remind you that the fight against crime is your fight, the year round.
You have just heard Dragnet, a series of authentic cases from official files. Technical advice comes from the Office of Chief of Police W.H. Parker, Los Angeles Police Department. Heard tonight were Barney Phillips, Vic Perrin, and Virginia Gregg. Script by Jim Moser. Music by Walter Schumann. Hal Gibney speaking.
Fatima Cigarettes, best of all king-size cigarettes, has brought you Dragnet, transcribed from Los Angeles.
Next, it's David Harding and Counter Spy on NBC.
From San Francisco, the American Broadcasting Company presents 1 out of 7. "24 hours make a day, 7 days make 1 week. And from these past 7 days, the editors here in our San Francisco newsroom have chosen the one story which they have judged most worthy of retelling. This is 1 out of 7.
Stand high above the wind, above, apart, alone, and look down on them. Look down on them. Look, and have only compassion in your hearts. Pitiful creatures. So confused, bewildered, and so confused. Oh, it is no use. No use. It is no use. They want to kill themselves. They want to kill everything. The fools, so blind, kill everything, break everything into little pieces. The fools destroy, kill. Stand high above the wind, above the proud speck of earth, and behold the ravaged thing, swinging perilously there in space and darkness, straining at its moorings, quaking on its orbit, and turn an inquiring ear to the angry little voices that arise therefrom, and soon lose themselves to the enveloping immensities of time and space. Listen. Listen. People of this great and glorious nation, let me tell you there is only one way to ensure the peace of the world so dearly bought. And that is by standing firm with other nations, by displaying our armed might at every turn, and if necessary, by getting tough. Getting tough. Let me tell you, people of this great and glorious nation, the Third World War is already well on its way to fulfillment. Already the world is turning into an armed camp, seething mistrust, suspicion, fear. Third World War soon to be realized? Is it not now evident that we must prepare for its coming and take steps to defend ourselves? Is it not now evident that there is a nation to the westward with whom it is impossible to live in peace and security? The danger is there. It is threatening. And I say that if we must fight another war, then let's have it now and be done with it. If our freedom must be bought again with the sacrifice of more sons, then let us be brave enough and strong enough to buy that freedom. The danger is there, and we must fight it. We must fight it. We must fight it. We must fight it.
Fears, suspicions, mistrust, eating at their tiny mortal brains, hating, not knowing why they hate, not understanding, not caring to understand, speaking of their doom as though it were another crusade, unmindful of the great cloak of darkness, pressing closer. Strange, pitiful creatures. Listen to them. Listen. And mark the signs of impending doom. Listen.
Reveal that a score of congressmen will soon submit a bill which provides that American military and naval bases throughout the world, together with our total armed might, be further strengthened to provide against attack by possible enemy nations in the West.
The United Nations organization, the supposed hope of the world, is reeling toward its grave already. Regrettable indeed, but that certainly appears to be the situation tonight after the serious cleavage between the big three powers on current issues of major importance. In fact, only this afternoon, a prominent military source in Washington told me that the Third World War is not only inevitable, but fast approaching. These past weeks, America, her people, and her neighbors reacted with dead pessimism to the ever-growing possibility of a Third World War. In a recognized national poll of public opinion, a cross-section of the populace was asked,
do you think there will be another world war in the next 20 years?
And the people, lately delivered from the death grip of a second world holocaust, answered in a majority of more than 65%. Yeah, there will be another world war in the next 20 years. A footnote to the parents, the mothers and fathers of Earth. Go now and look down into the face of your sleeping child. Conjure up the child's future. Yes, if all these signs and grim portents achieve disastrous reality. Contemplate the inevitable horror, and then act according to the dictates of your will. Stand high above the wind and look down with pity in your hearts, and listen to the angry mutterings of the childlike creatures as they quarrel over they know not what.
On the fifth columns are established and are now working in complete unity and absolute obedience to Moscow. Nobody knows what Soviet Russia intends to do in the immediate future, or what are the limits, if any, to their expansive tendencies. Thus, neither the sure prevention of war nor the continuous rise of world organization will be gained without the fraternal association of the English-speaking people. This means that a special relationship should be established between the British Commonwealth and Empire and the United States.
A few days later, after endless hysterical commentary and reaction, there comes the answer to these words.
The Soviet Union will follow its chosen path without deviation. Until now, those who tried to show strength to the Russian people, without exception, lost in the undertaking. Why then does Mr. Winston Churchill call the two great Anglo-Saxon nations to this fatal road? Russia is not seeking world supremacy, but our nation is determined to secure its own frontiers. To do this, we will not yield to any threats, to any subterfuges, nor to any art of the most modern, familiar, or unfamiliar weapons.
And while the storm rages, and suspicions, mistrust, and misunderstandings grow, and accepted channels of information clog the nation's mind with frightened, uncertain reports, from a quiet house in the city of Washington, the quiet voice of aging statesman Cordell Hull is heard throughout the towns and cities of the nation. We who are living now must not allow the human race to commit suicide through the lack of vision, or through selfishness, impatience, or provocation. I offer this 5-point program to help us overcome the dark threaten the world. First, that we examine with sympathy and patience the views of others. Secondly, that we ascertain the true facts. Thirdly, that we avoid taking stubborn positions one way or the other. Fourthly, that we refrain from exaggerating and overemphasizing one's own claim. And lastly, that we refrain from making an appeal to prejudice. Stand high above the wind and look down on them. Pitiful creatures, so confused, so frightened by the gathering darkness, so sure that there will be a tomorrow, so sure, even while their speck of earth totters at the edge of utter destruction. Look down on them and have pity.
The script for 1 out of 7 is written by James Edward Moser. Gil Dowd is the producer, and music is by Otto Clare at the Hammond organ. Tonight's program was based on dispatches taken from the wires of Associated Press, United Press, and International News Service. All characters were portrayed by Jack Webb. Listen next week, same time, same station for
1 out of 7.
Mark Jordan speaking. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.
The story you are about to hear is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Fatima Cigarettes, best of all king-size cigarettes, brings you Dragnet on both radio and television.
You're a detective sergeant. You're assigned a homicide detail. A woman reports the disappearance of her 30-year-old brother. He's been missing for only 2 days, but the manner of his disappearance was sudden, out of the ordinary. Your job? Investigate. Fatima, America's first, largest-selling blended cigarette. Fatima. Now, best of all, king-size cigarettes.
Prove it yourself today. Compare Fatima with the king-size cigarette you are now smoking.
1. Fatima's length filters the smoke 85 millimeters for your protection.
2. Fatima's length cools the smoke for your protection.
3. Fatima's length gives you those extra puffs, 21% longer than standard cigarette size.
And in Fatima, you get an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality.
Definitely the best quality in its class, but the same price as the cigarette you're now smoking.
Buy Fatima in the bright sunny yellow pack. Best of all, king-size cigarettes.
Dragnet, the documented drama of an actual crime. For the next 30 minutes, in cooperation with the Los Angeles Police Department, you will travel step by step on the side of the law through an actual case transcribed from official police files. From beginning to end, from crime to punishment, Dragnet is the story of your police force in action.
It was Wednesday, November 14th. It was overcast in Los Angeles. We were working the day watch out of homicide detail. My partner's Ed Jacobs. The boss is Captain Lorman. My name's Friday. We were on the way out from the office, and it was 8:56 a.m. when we got to the S&H Paper Company on 4th Street, the rear entrance.
Where do we find her, Joe? Upstairs?
No, main floor. She told me we'd find her in the timekeeper's office. She said it was near the back door entrance. We couldn't miss it.
Let's give a look down the corridor, huh? Maybe one of the workers can tell us.
Yeah, right. Looks like some kind of an office there, doesn't it? Just beyond the time clock?
Let's see. Paymaster, head timekeeper. Yeah, that's it.
The door's locked, Ed. You want to rap on the pay window?
Yeah.
Yes?
Police officers, ma'am. We have an appointment with Miss Edith Tabor.
Oh, yes, officers. I'm Edith Tabor. Just a moment, please. I'll ring the buzzer. Just push on the door.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Go ahead, Ed.
All right.
Are you the one I talked to on the phone, Sergeant Friday?
Yes, ma'am, that's right. This is my partner, Sergeant Jacobs.
How do you do?
This is about your brother, Miss Tabor. Ralph Tabor, is that right?
Yes, that's right. I know there must be something wrong. Ralph's been gone since Sunday. No one's seen him. No one's heard from him. I'm worried sick about it.
Last time you saw him was on Sunday?
No, I didn't actually see him. I talked to him on the phone. We made a date for dinner. Ralph and I always have dinner together Sunday nights. About the only time in the week we do get to see each other.
I see. I believe you told me on the phone you already checked with most of his friends, the places he'd most likely be. Is that right?
I've called everyone I can think of. No one's seen him.
Your brother's never done anything like this before, miss? Going off without telling anyone?
No, never. I'm very worried, Sergeant.
Can you think of any reason at all why he'd want to disappear of his own free will, I mean?
No. No reason in the world for it. He seemed perfectly all right when I talked to him on the phone Sunday. Everything was fine. We made a date for the movies Tuesday night. That was for last night. Picture downtown we wanted to see. He made a special point of it. I just know something must have happened.
Mm-hmm. I gather you know most of your brother's friends. You've kept in fairly close touch with him, haven't you?
Yes, we get together at least once a week, as I say. I'm 4 years older than Ralph. I've looked after him since we were kids. We've always been together, the last 5 or 6 years especially, ever since Mama died.
Your brother in a pretty stable mental condition, was he? No financial worries, nothing of that kind?
No, sir, nothing I know about.
I'd like to double-check this information that you gave me on the phone, Miss Tabor.
Mm-hmm.
The name and address and his description,
yes,
all right?
sir. Mm-hmm.
The full name, Ralph Lawrence Tabor, 14316 Almaden Street, male, white American, occupation, interior decorator. Is that it?
Yes, that's right.
Height, 5 foot 11, 155 pounds, dark blonde hair, gray eyes, fair complexion, birthmark on left side of neck.
Yes, that's all correct.
Your brother in the habit of carrying large sums of money around with him, do you know?
No, not that I know of. He has a good job. He's not getting rich at it, though. I don't think I've ever seen Ralph with more than $20, $30 on him at a time.
Who was the last person to see him, miss? You any idea?
Well, I talked to Ralph's landlady. She told me she saw Ralph and this friend of his, Andy Howard, going into Ralph's apartment. That was about 6 o'clock Sunday night. Ralph was supposed to meet me at 7:30, never showed up.
Now, this friend of your brother's, Miss Tabor, this Andy Howard, are you acquainted with him?
Yes, but I don't know him too well. I only met him 2 or 3 times. He lives in the apartment house next door to Ralph's, so the two of them were friends in the Navy together during the war. Good friends.
You tried to get in touch with this Andy Howard?
Yes. I called Ralph's apartment when he didn't show up for our dinner date Sunday night. There wasn't any answer, so I looked up Andy's number in the phone book and called him.
Was he at home?
Yes. Tried to talk to him, but it didn't do much good. Strange.
How's that?
He pretended he didn't even know me.
After we finished our interview with Edith Tabor, Ed Jacobs and I started out to double-check with all the known friends and associates of her brother. We talked to his employer and the people he worked with. None of them had seen him subsequent to 6 o'clock Sunday night. None of them could think of any good reason why he suddenly would want to pick up and leave his job and friends. The people he knew outside of his work told us the same thing. Nobody could explain it. Along the way, we inquired about Ralph Tabor's friend, Andy Howard. Most of the people we talked to knew him as a close friend of Tabor's. We checked at Howard's place of employment, but they told us he hadn't shown up for work since the previous Friday. We drove to Howard's apartment, checked with the manager, and he said that Howard had moved without notice late Sunday night. We crossed over to the apartment house next door, where Tabor lived, and talked to the landlady, a Mrs. Higbee. She corroborated the story we'd gotten from Tabor's sister that Andy Howard was last seen entering Tabor's apartment at about 6 o'clock Sunday night. Tabor was with him. Mrs. Higbee was sure of that. She showed us up to the 3rd floor to Ralph Tabor's apartment. The 2 rooms and the adjoining kitchenette were immaculate. There wasn't a thing out of place.
Neat as a pin, Joe. Not a thing out of order.
Yeah, it's the same in the bedroom. Say, Mrs. Higbee.
Yes, Sergeant.
Do you provide maid service with the apartments here?
No, we don't. We've been thinking about it, though. Haven't quite made up our minds. Such a task, getting good, competent help these days.
And the tenants are responsible for the entire upkeep, huh?
Yes. Everything but painting, wallpapering, things like that. Doesn't Mr. Tabor keep things spotless? Just spotless?
Yes, ma'am. There's just one thing I wanted to ask you about. It's over here by the window.
Yes.
Now, this wire here, apparently an aerial connection for a television set. Looks like...
Yes. Mr. Tabor does have a television. Why?
Well, I don't notice a set anywhere in the apartment. Would you happen to recall if he sent it out for repairs, anything like that?
No, not that I know of. Besides, this doesn't seem like Mr. Tabor at all.
How do you mean, Miss Higbee?
Well, he's always so neat, fastidious. The end of that wire there looks like it was torn off the connection, doesn't it? Along the windowsill, too. Isn't that terrible? Fasteners for the wire ripped right out of the woodwork. That certainly doesn't seem like Mr. Tabor.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else besides him have access to this apartment, ma'am?
No one that I know of. No one besides myself, I mean. I have duplicate keys to all the apartments. Well, I just happened to think.
Yes, ma'am?
If a repairman did move the set out, it's possible my houseboy might know about it. Sam, that's my houseboy.
How would he know about it?
Well, it's a rule of the house. All furniture, heavy things like that, they have to be taken down in the freight elevator. It opens right onto the alley in back of the building. It's very handy.
Yes, ma'am.
Sam's the only one who operates that elevator. That's why I say it's possible he might know about it. Would you like to have me ask him?
I wonder if you would, please.
Oh, surely. It won't take but a minute, and I'll be right back.
Thank you, Miss Higgins.
Joe, you want to have a look over here?
Yeah. What do you got?
This wall bed here. I tried to pull it down. It's stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Stand right here. Oh, over here. See if you notice anything.
Yeah, I do. You want to give me a hand? See if we can't get the bed down?
Yeah.
Push it on your side. Then.
Okay.
That's it. Okay. It's coming down now.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Tabor, you think?
Oh, the description seems to fit. Beaten to death, looks like, doesn't it?
Something sticking out under the bed covers there.
Yeah, it's a claw hammer. Stains all over it.
Vicious. Guess the killer wanted to make sure.
It's one of the worst I've seen.
Feel sorry for the sister. She was pretty close to him. It's going to be tough on her.
No tougher than it was for him. 2:38 p.m. We phoned the office, told them what we'd found, and then we put in a call for Lieutenant Lee Jones and the crime lab crew. While we were waiting, we questioned the landlady again, Mrs. Higbee. She said her houseman, Sam, told her he knew nothing about a television set being moved out of Ralph Tabor's apartment. However, it was possible somebody could have taken the set down in the main elevator late at night without being seen. Mrs. Higbee also told us that Tabor had a car. We checked the apartment garage, but it was gone. All Mrs. Higbee could tell us was that it was a late model car and that Tabor often loaned it to his friend Andy Howard. Sergeants Al Shambra and Joe LaMonica from Homicide arrived, and together the four of us interviewed the employees and the tenants in the apartment building. They gave us little or nothing at all. A few minutes before 3 p.m., the crime lab crew showed up and started their preliminary investigation. We put in a call for the coroner. From the obvious lack of fingerprints in usual places around the apartment, it was apparent that the murderer had taken great precautions to cover his tracks. 3:35 p.m., the deputy coroner arrived, and after the preliminary investigation was finished, the body was removed to the county morgue. Ed and I went back to the office, checked our DMV, and got out on all points on Tabor's car, and also on the friend he was last seen with, Andy Howard. R&I turned up a single entry for Howard's criminal record, a drunk driving charge. 5:20 p.m., we met with Edith Tabor and broke the news of her brother's death. When she recovered from the shock, we interviewed her briefly.
It was Andy Howard. I know it was him. It had to be.
Why do you say that, Miss Tabor? There's something about this man Howard you haven't told us?
He's no good, Sergeant. He's no good at all. That's what I've been afraid of. I've been afraid of it right along.
Well, just how do you mean, ma'am? He's no good.
He's a tramp, a bum. He won't get a job. He's been living off my brother. He isn't normal. There's something wrong with him.
Well, how is it your brother put up with him?
Well, I told you he and Ralph were friends in the Navy. He did a big favor for Ralph once. He's been living off it ever since. Taking his clothes, borrowing his car, money, never paying it back.
Why do you think he killed your brother, miss?
I just know it, that's all. He did it.
He ever fight with your brother? Would you happen to know? Did he ever threaten him?
They had a big fight one night, about 2 weeks ago, I think. Andy kept sponging until Ralph got good and sick of it. Told Andy to go out and get a job. That's when the fight started.
You saw it, did you?
Ralph told me about it. Fist fight in the alley back of the apartment. Ralph knocked Andy down. Andy said he'd never forget it. He'd pay Ralph back. A couple of days after that, my brother said the two of them made up. Everything was all right. Ralph should have known better. He should have known better.
Mm-hmm. Just a few more questions, Miss Tabor. Can you tell us anything about Andy Howard's background, where he's from, who his friends are, places he usually goes?
No. I didn't know much about him. He's from the South, I think, Alabama. Ralph's friends can tell you more about him than I can.
All right. Had you heard anything lately about Howard planning to move out of his apartment?
No, nothing. When I heard that he did move and Ralph was missing, I knew something was wrong. That's why I called you. If I'd only known before. Poor Ralph, if I only knew.
Well, try to take it easy, ma'am. We'll arrange for a car to drive you home, all right?
It's so hard to understand. So hard. For anyone to kill Ralph like that, horrible. He was so good. He was my brother.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you say to a man who kills your brother? How do you understand him? What do you tell him?
Well, why even try?
What?
Let the jury tell him. Before we had the victim's sister, Edith Tabor, driven to her home, we asked her about the television set in her brother's apartment, but she was unable to explain its absence. Burglary detail had already been notified about the case, and the pawn shop detail alerted. An APB had been gotten out containing a complete description of the TV set along with the serial numbers. A few minutes after we got back from dinner that night, we had an answer on it. A pawn shop operator on West 7th Street called in with the information that he'd taken in a television set with identical description and serial numbers as that of Tabor's. Ed and I drove out to the pawn shop and checked the operator's buy book. The set had been pawned the day after the murder. The serial numbers and description matched in every detail. The description and signature of the man who pawned it matched perfectly with that of Ralph Tabor's friend, Andy Howard. The set was impounded, and just on a chance, we had Dean Bergman dusted for latent fingerprints.
Dean? Oh, hi, Ed, Friday.
How you making out? Any luck?
Not bad. Have a look here.
Yeah.
Picked up 4 sets of prints off it, all told. These here are the dead man's.
Yeah.
These here, they belong to the pawn shop operator.
Mm-hmm.
He's belong to his son, helps him in the shop.
Yeah.
Guess this is the one you're looking for. 2 clean index prints.
Did you classify them?
Checked them against prints from Andrew Howard's package.
Yeah.
They match.
When we checked in for work the following morning, we got the coroner's report on Ralph Tabor. Cause of death was listed as cerebral hemorrhage and multiple fractures of the skull caused by blows from a heavy blunt object. The other reports from the crime lab didn't give us much help. The better part of the next 3 days, Ed and I, along with Al Shambra and Joe LaMonica, held detailed interviews with the known friends and associates of the murder victim, Ralph Tabor, and the number 1 suspect, Andy Howard. The information we picked up was incorporated in a supplementary all-points bulletin and gotten out immediately. We found out that Andy Howard had a sailor's uniform in his possession, and though unauthorized, he wore it frequently. It bore the insignia of a quartermaster first class on the sleeve. We also found out Howard had identical tattoos on each forearm, the picture of an unfurled American flag with the name Betty D below it. We had the city covered for the suspect. 4 days passed, no trace of him. Saturday, November 24th. We got an urgent call from Homicide Commander Lieutenant Mort Gear in San Diego.
On the highway? Uh-huh. When was that, Mort? I see. Hey, Joe, you got a pencil there?
Yeah, here you go.
Thanks. Hey, Mort, you're pretty sure, huh? Uh-huh. Well, yeah, it seems to tie in all right. How's that? Well, I don't know for sure. We'll check with Captain Lorman right now and let you know. Yeah, thanks, Mort. Goodbye. Good brief.
What do you have to say?
One of their traffic men down there, a fellow by the name of Jack Ladd, stopped a car on the highway going out of town speeding.
Yeah.
Ladd says the man answers Andy Howard's description perfectly, right down to the tattoo on the forearm. No doubt about the car the guy was driving was Tabor's description and license number. Even used Tabor's identification.
When did all this happen?
The day after the murder. They'd have held the man, but they didn't have the information at the time.
Oh, that's a dumb break. Which way was Howard going, did they tell you?
Yeah, into town. They figure he's still there someplace.
How do you mean?
Found the car an hour ago, abandoned.
10 minutes after the phone call from San Diego, Captain Lorman checked back in at the office, and Ed and I met with him. We told him about the information San Diego had phoned in, and he gave Ed and I an immediate okay for the trip south. We went down to the garage, picked up a car, and 6 hours later, we checked in with Sergeant Russ Ormsby, San Diego Homicide.
What's this, another fishing trip, or are we doing business this time?
Afraid it's all business, Russ. The Andy Howard thing. Mort Gear around?
No, I won't be back till later. I can brief you on it, though. McGuire and I have been working it on this end.
Well, how about Tabor's car? You still got it staked out?
Yeah, no nibbles yet. What do you figure? If nothing happens, pull it in tomorrow, process it for prints?
Yeah.
We've had something warmer than that since Mort Gear called you. It looks pretty good.
Yeah, what do you got?
Only came up with it a couple of hours ago. Field interrogation card, made out last night, west end of town.
Mm-hmm.
Beat officer by the name of Driscoll questioned a man and a girl parked in a car out that way last night. There's a description on the man.
Thanks, Russ. Yeah, fits Howard all the way in here.
Mm-hmm. Couldn't get much closer. Huh?
We checked out the car they were in. Belongs to the girl.
Yeah. Look here, Ed. He's still using Tabor's identification.
Yeah.
All right, where's it go from here, Russ? You got this Andy Howard spotted?
No. Beatman Driscoll, he didn't know the guy from Adam.
Yeah, well, where's that leave us?
The girl Howard was with. Driscoll knew her.
We contacted the beat officer, Driscoll. The girl who'd been spotted sitting in a parked car the night before with murder suspect Andy Howard was identified as Helen McClung, a waitress in a downtown cocktail bar. A stakeout was placed in her apartment, and she was brought in for interrogation.
Well, he's not a good friend of mine. I don't know where he lives. Don't know what he does. I hardly even know him, Sergeant.
You were out for a drive with him the night before last, that right?
Sure, I don't deny that. We went out for a ride. That's all there is to it.
You sure you don't know where this man lives, Helen?
Not exactly, no. He's staying at a hotel downtown, I think. We went for a ride, and I dropped him off at the bus line. That's all there was to it.
Do you expect to see him again? You have any dates with him in the next couple of days?
No. Tell you the truth, I thought I had a date. Didn't work out. Nothing ever works out. Phone this morning, called it off.
Tell you why?
He gave some lame excuse. I found out the real reason, though.
What's that? You mind telling us?
No, I don't mind. Got a date with my girlfriend instead, Clara Peterson.
Burn me up a little, but I don't mind.
Well, where's your girlfriend live, Helen?
You mean Claire? Out on Rose Avenue, 1500 block. I'm not sure, though.
Is he going to pick her up there?
I guess so. Why?
When's the date for, do you know?
Yeah, tomorrow night.
You are listening to Dragnet, authentic stories of your police force in action.
Compare Fatima with your present king-size cigarette.
Yes, compare Fatima with the king-size cigarette you are now smoking.
1. Fatima's length filters the smoke 85 millimeters for your protection.
2. Fatima's length cools the smoke for your protection.
3. Fatima's length gives you those extra puffs, 21% longer than standard cigarette size.
And in Fatima, you get an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality.
Friends, to show our confidence in Fatima, to convince you quickly, dramatically, that Fatima is the best of all king-size cigarettes, we make this money-back guarantee.
Buy a pack of Fatimas. Enjoy Fatima quality, extra mildness, and superbly blended tobaccos.
If you're not convinced Fatima is better than the king-size cigarette you're now smoking, just return the pack and the unsmoked Fatimas before April 1st, and we'll give you your money back plus postage. Fatima, Box 37, New York 1.
Remember, each king-size Fatima gives you an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality.
Switch to Fatima today. Best of all king-size cigarettes.
Monday, November 26th, 10 a.m. After checking her name through San Diego R&I, we finally located the address of the girl Claire Peterson, who was supposed to have a date with our murder suspect, Andy Howard, that night. She lived in a small apartment house in the southeast end of town. The manager told us that she'd already left for work. We ran it down. The Peterson girl was employed as a cutter in a shirt factory down in the industrial district. We questioned her at her work. A tall, attractive girl, blonde, blue eyes, a small scar on her chin. She kept working while we talked to her.
Yeah, I have a date with Ralph Tabor tonight. Something the matter?
Afraid so, Miss Peterson. In the first place, his name isn't Ralph Tabor.
No, I'm sorry. You must be wrong, officer. I was out with him just last Monday. I know that's his name. It's on everything he has. His car, his wallet, all his business papers. Guess you must have made a mistake.
No, it's no mistake, man. We checked it out pretty thoroughly. We'd like to talk to you about him if we could, please.
Well, there's not too much to tell. I just met him Monday night. It was with my girlfriend, Helen. He wanted to go out with me, so I made a date. I didn't think there was anything wrong.
You said he's to meet you at your apartment, Miss Peterson. Did he give any specific time when he'd be there?
8 or 8:30, he said. Hey, what's wrong? Do you know? There's something wrong with the man. I ought to know, don't you think?
We want him for questioning, ma'am. You any idea where he lives?
No, I haven't. One of the hotels downtown, I think. 5th Street or 6th Street. I wouldn't know for sure. Why do you want him? Can't you tell me, please?
We believe he's committed a murder, Miss Peterson. Matter of fact, we're sure of it.
What do you want me to do?
If he calls up before your date tonight, don't do anything to discourage him. Tell him to meet you. If he wants to postpone the date, try and make him come tonight. If you can't do that, try and find out where he's staying. And don't let him know we talked to you.
Well, all right, I can try. You'll be there when he comes to my apartment, I mean.
Yes, ma'am, we'll be there. You'll be protected all the way.
Well, what do you do?
Ma'am?
What do you do? You say he's a murderer. He must be desperate. What do you do? How do you arrest him?
It's his choice, ma'am, any way he wants it. As soon as we left the plant where the Peterson girl worked, we called Sergeant Tony McGuire at San Diego Homicide Detail, and he made arrangements for an immediate stakeout at the girl's apartment. At 7 p.m., Ed and I, along with Russ Ormsby and Tony McGuire, drove out to supplement the men on stakeout at the girl's apartment. 8 o'clock, 9, 9:30, 10 p.m., still no sign of the suspect. At midnight, our relief team showed up, and we headed back for the office. When we got there was a bulletin from the Highway Patrol reporting that earlier that night, a man partially identified as Andy Howard had been seen heading north from San Diego on U.S. Highway 101 toward Los Angeles. We got Captain Lorman on the phone, briefed him on the latest developments, and told him that photographs of the suspect had been distributed to all officers. The next 10 hours failed to turn up anything new. San Diego officers continued to cover their end. 11:15 p.m. the next day, we drove back to Los Angeles and reported in at homicide. There was a note in the book from Lorman asking us to check in early the following morning, so Ed and I signed out and went home to get some sleep. The next morning, 1:45 a.m. Hello, Friday talking.
Sorry to wake you up, Friday. This is Hawkins down at the business office.
Oh, yeah, Hawkins. What do you got?
Beat officer out in Wilshire called in 2 or 3 minutes ago. He figures he has your murder suspect for you, Andy Howard. Bring him in now.
Well, what about identification? He checked that over?
No identification. He's wearing a sailor's uniform.
What about insignia, his rating?
Quartermaster first class.
After I hung up, I phoned Ed, got him out of bed, and the two of us drove down to the office where we picked up the suspect and took him to the interrogation room. During the interrogation, we found a wallet concealed on his person. It contained a driver's license, credit card, and half a dozen other means of identification. All of them were made out to Ralph Tabor. After an hour of questioning, he'd still admit nothing. He sat hunched over in his chair, tearing an old envelope into small pieces and dropping them on the floor in front of him.
This will make the 10th time I told you. I don't know what happened to Ralph. I didn't take his car or his television set. I didn't leave the city. I wasn't in San Diego last week. Now, if you don't believe me, you prove I'm lying.
We didn't pull you in on the guess, Andy. We'll prove it.
You mind telling me how?
We got 3 people on their way in here right now. Ralph Tabor's sister, his landlady, a man by the name of Sims, pawn shop dealer. Mean anything to you?
My word against theirs.
3-1, mister. I got the odds in their favor.
Look, why don't we straighten this out once and for all? You think I killed my friend Ralph. Why? Explain it to me. Why should I kill him?
Look, I wouldn't know, Andy. Maybe you'd like to tell us. His sister says he was pretty good to you.
She was good to me. I guess she didn't tell you what I did for him overseas when we were in the Navy together.
No, she didn't tell us.
She wouldn't. Stupid women. I haven't found one of them worth anything. Frustrated. She needs a husband. That's her trouble.
She claims her brother was paying the bills for you, Andy. He gave you clothes, money, his car. She says you were living off of him.
Lousy woman. That's all the thanks I get for all I did for Ralph. I borrowed a few dollars, yeah. That's all. Kept throwing it up to me, him and his sister, after all I did for him.
What are you trying to say, Andy?
Could have been different, Ralph and me. What do you want me to say?
Did you kill him? Did you kill him, Andy?
You can't explain it that way. It's not as simple as that.
Didn't?
No, it's all mixed up together. It's complicated. It's not simple at all. I mean, with your best friend especially. It's more of a mistake. I mean, morally, I didn't mean to kill him. I just did. It's a mistake. Terrible mistake.
Want to give us a statement, Howard? Stenographer will take it down.
Oh, yeah, all right, in a minute. Just want to make sure you understand. I mean about Ralph. And all I did for him.
Yeah.
No gratitude at all. You blame me? I mean, after all I did for him, you blame me?
Well, you should have remembered, Andy, about gratitude.
Yeah?
Doesn't mean much when you have to ask for it.
The story you have just heard was true. The names were changed to protect the innocent.
On February 4th, trial was held in Superior Court, Department 89, City and County of Los Angeles, State of California. In a moment, the results of that trial.
And now, here is our star, Jack Webb.
Thank you, George Fenneman. Friends, you've been listening to Dragnet for the past 28 minutes. Now, it'll take you less than 28 seconds to prove that Fatima is the best of all king-size cigarettes. Just compare Fatima with the king-size cigarette you're now smoking. Fatima filters the smoke through a long distance of 85 millimeters. Fatima's length cools the smoke for your protection. Fatima's length gives you those extra puffs, 21% longer than standard cigarette size. And in Fatima, you get an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality. Prove it today. Buy Fatima.
Andrew Thomas Howard was tried and convicted of murder in the second degree. He is now serving his term in the state penitentiary, San Quentin, California. Second-degree murder is punishable by imprisonment from 5 years to life.
Ladies and gentlemen, right now, inflation is America's #1 menace on the home front. It's the one enemy that can lick America. We can help prevent this by working harder, working better. The fight against inflation will succeed only if all of us get behind it.
You have just heard Dragnet, a series of authentic cases from official files. Technical advice comes from the Office of Chief of Police W.H. Parker, Los Angeles Police Department. Heard tonight were Barney Phillips, Joyce McCluskey, and Virginia Gregg. Script by Jim Moser. Music by Walter Schumann. Hal Gibney speaking.
Fatima Cigarettes. Best of all, king-size cigarettes has brought you Dragnet, transcribed from Los Angeles. Next, it's David Harding and Counter Spy on NBC.
Tired of the everyday grind? Ever dream of a life of romantic adventure? Want to get away from it all? We offer you Escape.
Escape, designed to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
You are a passenger aboard a submarine, making its last peaceful voyage across the sea. While unknown to you, the captain has a plan, which, if it succeeds, will mean for you and the entire crew a fate from which there can be no escape.
So listen now as Escape brings you Mary Ann Mosner and Francis Rosenwald's exciting story, The Log.
When I was a cub reporter, my boss told me, be there. Don't let your own emotions color your story. Stick to the facts. So these are the facts. This is the way it happened. I met Captain Jan Zabatos in a Scandinavian port. During the last war, he'd been in command of a submarine, the only sub of a nation that fought the dictators side by side with the Allies. When he was finally forced into this neutral port, the captain preferred internment to surrender. After that, his nation went out of the business of being a nation. He was left behind with his ship, unwanted by the Allies, and a burden to the government that had become his permanent host. To pay for the vessel's berth and maintenance, the authorities turned her into a tourist's exhibit, permitting her skipper to stay aboard as caretaker and tourist guide. We met during one of those guided tours.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the tour of the SS Seagull, a great ship with a peerless war record. It was my honor and privilege to guide her across hostile waters as master of this man-of-war that gave battle to the last torpedo. Thank you. No, thank you. Thank you. You're very welcome all, and this way if you please.
You've got a few minutes, Captain? I'm Bill Rawlins, New York Globe. I enjoyed your tour a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Rawlins. Always glad to talk to gentlemen of the press. I presume you would like to write a story on the Seagull?
Well, to be honest about it, sir, I'd rather write about her skipper.
I am honored, but without the Seagull, you won't have much of a story. She and I are comrades in arms.
The war has been over a long time, Captain.
Yes. Yes, of course.
Haven't you ever thought of going home?
Mr. Rawlins, this is my home, and always will be.
As we walked across the deck, the Seagull came to life the way her skipper talked about her exploits at sea. And I saw 1,500 tons of steel that had never faltered, never failed. I was busy taking notes when the man came up the gangplank, stocky, brisk, dressed in a natty gray suit, a briefcase under his arm.
How do, gentlemen? Where do I find the man in charge?
I'm in command of the Seagull, Captain Jan Zabatos. What can I do for you?
The name's Andrews, says Picard. I represent the Liverpool office of the Marine Salvage and Surplus Corporation. Do you mind if I look around?
The next tour of the Seagull commences at 16 o'clock.
That's fine. You go right ahead. I know my way around ships. Bought and sold them all my life. This is my first time.
I'm afraid you must be mistaken, sir. The Seagull is not for sale.
Not anymore. My company just bought her. I closed the deal yesterday.
No, this can't be. Nobody has authority to sell my ship.
The government has, according to international law. This isn't your ship anymore, Captain. Now, do you realize what it costs this country to keep her docked here?
I suppose I knew that this was going to happen. Excuse me, sir, what does your company plan to do with the Seagull?
Scrap her. What else is she good for?
Yes, of course. What else? You plan to break her up here?
No, we'll have to tow her across to Liverpool.
Mr. Andrews, the Seagull is perfectly capable to sail under her own power.
All the way across the North Sea? No. It must be pretty rusty by now.
My ship is in as good condition as she was 10 years ago when we put in this port.
I know how you feel, Skipper, but if you don't mind, I'd rather play it safe.
No, I don't think I made myself clear, sir. This ship has had the finest maintenance that you find aboard any vessel. I have seen to that myself. Would you care to go below and look about, sir?
Sure, why not?
Then if you will follow me. Rust and corrosion, I understand.
She was a beauty, all right. Her diesels reposing in gleaming silence. Her eye, a Zeiss periscope, set to scan the horizon. Her tubes ready for torpedoes. I felt a strange affinity toward this ship that to Andrews meant just so many tons of metal to be turned into X amount of dollars, while to her captain she was a whole world of tradition. A world now coming to an end.
And still, I suppose you think that the Seagull should be dismantled and scrapped?
Well, I'm afraid that's what we bought her for.
Then may I respectfully make a last request on her behalf?
I'll be happy to oblige if it's anything reasonable.
Don't tow her away like a crippled ship. Let me guide her on this last journey. All we need is 1 week, a skeleton crew. My services are free.
I don't know. All right. I'll tell you what, Skipper. I'll check with my company and get in touch with you.
Well, that sounds like a good idea to me, Andrews. You'd be saving your company quite a bit of money.
My firm's allergic to taking chances.
You don't take chances with the Seagull.
The cold logic of the dollar in the bank, not the captain's last request, persuaded the scrap middleman to take a well-calculated risk on the Seagull and her master. Mr. Andrews was to accompany the ship on her final journey. I requested and was granted permission to go along and cover the voyage for my paper. It was a gray, overcast morning when we boarded the Seagull. She was straining gently at her anchors with the last of the ebb tide.
Well, Skipper hired a decent cook. Nothing like sea air to give a man an appetite.
I'm not looking forward to a picnic, Mr. Andrews. All I want is a story.
You won't find it in this barge, Rawlins. But I can give you plenty of stories. My company isn't averse to publicity.
When we reached the bridge, we found a changed man. Captain Jan Zabados, commander of the submarine Seagull, wearing a freshly creased uniform, windbreaker, and his well-worn battle cap.
Anchor secure, sir.
All engines back aft.
All engines back aft, sir.
Course 005.
005, sir.
Port engine back 2/3. Starboard engine ahead, standard.
Port engine back 2/3. Starboard engine ahead, standard, sir.
Stand by, all hands.
Standing by, sir.
Now, well, gentlemen, we are all.
Chilly this morning, Skipper.
Perfect weather.
Makes you hungry anyway. What time do we...
Breakfast will be served in my quarters in 10 minutes, Mr. Andrews.
Come on down, Rawlins. Let's get some chow.
We had breakfast. It was better than Andrews had expected. And he was in an expansive mood when we returned to the bridge. He'd fortified himself with a thick cigar which stuck out of his mouth like a stubby finger pointed at the captain.
How's it going, Skipper?
Passing the 3-mile zone, sir.
Weather seems to be clearing up. Maybe we can do a little deep sea fishing, huh, Rollins?
I've never fished from a submarine, Mr. Andrews.
Sorry, gentlemen. No fishing. This is not a pleasure cruise.
That's the step, Skipper. Business before pleasure.
And I agree, sir. You will leave the bridge now.
Why, what's wrong?
Nothing, sir. We are getting ready to submerge.
What are you talking about? Submerge? On whose orders?
My orders, Mr. Andrews.
Nothing doing. That's against regulations, and you know it. This trip is to be made on the surface unless there's an emergency.
Clear diving rudders.
Diving rudders clear, sir.
Did you hear what I said?
Ready the tanks.
Tank standing by, sir.
That's enough, Sabatos. You know what the orders are. I'm not going to allow you...
I must inform you, sir, that I am in sole command of the Seagull. I shall surrender her to no one but her rightful owner, my country.
Your country? You've got no country. It's a satellite.
Then I shall sail the seas until I have one again.
You know what you're saying? That's piracy.
Then, Mr. Andrews, I shall be a pirate, shan't I? Clear to deck. Diving stations.
Diving stations.
Out of your mind.
Passengers below, please. Now, that's an order, Mr. Andrews.
Standing by, sir.
Well, I'd found my story. When we slipped beneath the surface of the North Sea, the captain let the men have rum and brandy to celebrate the Seagull's return to what he called active duty.
He's crazy. He's gone stark raving crazy. The crew that madman picked himself. Well, we'll see about this. Hey, Bosun! Bosun! Come over here. Know how to handle this ship?
I know my job, sir.
How'd you like a bonus? Say $1,000.
I like it fine, sir.
All right. Take over. Never mind the captain. I'll back you up.
I'm sorry, sir. He's my captain.
I'm in charge of this ship. He's under my orders.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, sir. I'm under his orders.
That's how it went with the rest of the crew. They were all men without a country, handpicked by the captain, fanatically devoted to their master and the ship that was their world. In the meantime, I noticed some activity on the part of the captain and his radio operator. A constant flow of communications between the ship's wireless and her master's tiny cabin. Andrews and I went there.
Come in.
The captain was sitting on the bunk, poring over a chart-filled table.
Mind if you and I have a little talk? I'm quite busy. 5 minutes, Mr. Andrews. Thank you.
Don't you think this farce has gone far enough? You'll be running out of supplies, you know, and then what?
The sea is abundant with stores of all kinds, Mr. Andrews.
How do you mean?
I shall requisition what I need.
You can't be serious.
Can't I? I have guns, fore and aft, shells to go with them. Give me time, I shall obtain torpedoes as well.
You'll never get away with this.
That remains to be seen. My wireless has picked up the Blenheim Castle, an English freighter. We will sight her by nightfall.
You're going to stop her?
Exactly, Mr. Andrews. There are a few supplies that we need. I am sure her captain will oblige before continuing on his way.
We will return to Escape in just a moment. But first, maybe it rained where you are today. The United States is pretty big, and it's hard for somebody on a coast-to-coast network to keep track of the weather everywhere. But even if they did, remember, it's been a very dry summer. The danger of forest fires is on every hand. Please be careful with those campfires, those cigarettes, those lighted matches. And now, back to Escape.
Approximately 8 hours later, the bosun's pipe shrilled as the Seagull rose stealthily to the ocean surface. Dead ahead in a choppy sea loomed the massive hull of the freighter Blenheim Castle, her foaming nose eerily phosphorescent, the position lights glimmering across the sea. Our searchlight reached up to her bridge with a long white finger. We clearly made out the tanker's captain standing on his bridge in a splotch of white glare, bellowing through a megaphone.
Hey! Ho, 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 ho! Heave to! Having a long time! Who are you? Raider! Pass a line! Raider!
now!
That's a bloody lie! Heave away!
Ready above, or you will be sunk!
Why, you kettle-bottom, dumbbell half-rider! I'll bust the cat front to the main water!
Follow my orders, or I open fire!
Why don't you back up and cook off?
I give you 3 minutes.
I'll give you a kick in the belly!
It was incredible. Here we were at peace, and Captain Zabatos had started his own private war. He had the guns, and the tanker's captain had only his ship. Before the Seagull's gun crew could get a bearing, the tanker lurched forward, picking up speed. Wheel hard over, bent on ramming us. Our guns started to fire, blasting away at the tanker. But it kept coming on. Closer, closer. The sharp bow cutting through the choppy sea.
Dive! Dive! Dive!
We weren't fast enough. There was a grinding lurch, and we knew the Seagull had been damaged in the collision with the freighter, but we couldn't tell how badly. The first realization of disaster came when we saw the captain, his hair damp with perspiration, eyes gleaming feverishly, and a face turned ashen gray.
Nobody leaves his station without my orders. You gentlemen stay out of the way.
I'm not going to take orders from you or anybody else. I represent the owners of this ship.
You do?
You heard me, Zabatos.
Then tell your owner she has been rammed.
I'll hold you responsible.
As her commander, I accept sole responsibility for ship and crew, including you and Mr. Rollins.
That's very noble, mister, but I'm a businessman. What's the extent of the damage?
Conning tower smashed and the scope tube cracked.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, surface, send an SOS.
I never have sent an SOS, and I never will.
That's your business. I'm an American citizen, and so is Mr. Rollins. You can't hold us against our...
You only put ashore when conditions are favorable.
Let me set you straight about this. If you want to go down in misery, I'm not stopping you. But you can't force me to stick around until this thing can's full of holes. I want to get out of here. I order you for the last time surface to signal for help.
Andrews, if you wish to leave now, you may take a straight back.
You're crazy.
Not at all. The damage is trifling. But since you feel so frightened of your life, I suggest that you leave.
So help me, when we get out of this, I'm going to have you busted, jailed, hung if I can.
Get out of my way if you please. I have no time to discuss the matter with you.
Come on, Andrews.
Whose side are you on, anyway, Rollins?
Nobody's. I just want to live. The hours passed slowly at the ocean bottom. The stillness echoing the attempts of the men working to repair the damage. The air was getting foul, breathing becoming more difficult.
Storage battery, storage, sir.
Then dim the lights, bosun.
Oxygen's running low.
Ration it.
I've got 2 men in sick bay already.
All right. All right. Carry on.
Sir.
What is it, bosun?
The men need air. It's very bad aft.
All right. Very well, bosun. We go up. All engines ready.
All engines ready, sir.
Clear pressure tanks.
Clearing tank, sir.
Diving rudder. Standard.
Vessels approaching overhead, sir.
Ease rudder, hold tanks.
Surface vessel calling on our channel, sir.
Don't answer.
British subjects are closing in, sir. Request ship-to-ship communication.
All right. I talked to them. Stand by.
SS Seagull coming in. Go ahead, NS-127.
Are you in trouble, Seagull?
No trouble, sir.
Surface at once.
State your conditions.
No.
Then I regretfully refuse her. Following orders, Seagull. Come up, or we drop depth charges.
Do so, then.
You can't get away. We've got a sonar fix on you.
No surrender.
We're ready with depth charges, Seagull.
Wait! Get back! Americans down here! We lost communications!
The first depth charge was a warning, followed by another coming closer. Another still closer. The pressure was enormous. The ship rocked from bow to stern and started to take water.
All engines ahead full!
All engines ahead full, sir.
Course 02, standard.
Course 02, standard, sir.
Oh, quiet, Captain. This is wrong. It can't help now.
Stand out of my way, Mr. Rawlins.
You're a naval officer, not a murderer. Your ship is finished. You have no right to kill your crew. And that's what it's going to mean if you don't stop.
This is my ship. My life. No, you don't understand.
It's still murder.
Standing by for your orders, sir.
Well, what are you going to do?
Oh. Surface.
Surface!
Surface! Stand by, surface!
No response, sir. Tanks won't operate.
All engines stop!
All engines stop!
Now what?
I seem to have no choice. Do I? Stand by to abandon ship.
Abandon ship!
That was almost the end of it. The sub couldn't get up to the surface. She could only go down. And the way she was taking water, it wasn't going to be long. The men lined up outside the escape chamber. And one by one, they shook hands with the captain as they moved by. You could see in his eyes what they meant to him. And in their low voices, their feelings for him. Goodbye, Captain.
Goodbye, sir.
Goodbye, Captain. Goodbye, Mr. Spink.
Goodbye, Captain. Then it was Andrew's turn to go.
The bosun is in the lock. He will give you instructions as to how to get to the surface.
I lived through this, Apollos. I'm going to see...
I know. I am sorry for the discomfort you have been caused. Goodbye, Mr. Andrews.
Coming, Rollins?
Sure. You go ahead. One at a time, you know.
Well, good luck.
And to you.
Now, Mr. Owens, huh? I imagine you would have quite a story to write for your newspaper.
Well, let's forget that. It's not important. What about you? Andrews isn't kidding, you know. Once you get up there...
I wonder if... Would you do me one last service?
Of course. He got his log out and started to write. I looked over his shoulder as he made his last entry. All men off ship. Strong list to port. Storage batteries 0. Oxygen 20. Ship secure. Signed Captain Jan Zabatos. Commander SS Seagull.
You oblige me by taking this log up with you. It can be fastened to your belt.
Well, why don't you carry it?
There are one or two other things I must take with me.
Now, look.
No, Mr. Owens, go on. I will follow you.
Yes, but...
Please, go on.
Okay. Hurry up, though, will you? She won't last long. I got up to the surface. A boat from the sub-chaser picked me up 5 minutes later. Every man of the crew and Andrews was safe. After that, we cruised about for hours, waiting, hoping that Sabatos would appear. But he didn't. I should have known he'd stay with the Seagull. The skipper of the chaser understood what had happened a lot better after he'd read the log. I guess seamen have a feeling about such things. Well, that's the story. That's all there is to it.
Under the direction of Anthony Ellis, Escape has brought you The Log, a story by Marianne Mosner and Francis Rosenwald, starring Lawrence Dobkin and Byron Kane. Featured in the cast were Alan Reed, Kurt Martell, Frank Gerstle, Eric Snowden, Richard Peel, and Jim Nesser. The special music for Escape was composed and conducted by Leith Stevens. Next week.
You are walking the streets of an Indian city, terrifying, sweltering streets, while the man you fear has already made his mark on you. A mark from which there can be no escape.
So listen next week, when Escape will bring you James Henderson's frightening story, The Untouchable. I Confess is the graphic title of tomorrow night's Lux Radio Theater film play adaptation. Cary Grant and Phyllis Thaxter co-star. You'll remember I Confess as one of Alfred Hitchcock's most suspenseful thrillers, and you'll enjoy every minute of it on most of these same stations tomorrow night when CBS Radio presents the Lux Radio Theater. This is Roy Rowan speaking. Remember, you can hear Jack Benny every Sunday night on the CBS Radio Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to technical difficulties beyond our control at the moment, the Dragnet program, originally scheduled at this period, has been postponed temporarily. It will be heard in just a few moments.
Partners at Jake. Boss is Captain Steve. My name's Friday. We were on the way out from the office, 10:38 a.m. when we got to Paris Avenue. Number 213.
Yes? How do you do, Miss Wagner? Police officers, I'm Sergeant Jacobs. This is my partner, Sergeant Friday.
Oh, yes, Sergeant. I've been expecting you. Would you come in, please?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hope you'll excuse the way the house looks, officers, right in the middle of packing, getting ready to move.
I understand. Try not to keep you, Miss Wagner.
So much to do, making arrangements for Dorothy's funeral, the undertaker. Then all this moving business on top of it. I couldn't bear to stay here any longer, though.
Yes, ma'am, we understand. We'll make it as brief as we can. I'd like to have you tell us about this trouble that your sister had, as much as you know about it, I mean.
Plain out-and-out murder, in my opinion. Might just as well have taken a gun and killed her, no difference.
You knew all about the relationship between your sister Dorothy and this man Reynolds, is that correct?
Yes, right from the beginning. I was there when they met. But you mind if I went ahead packing these few things here? My sister's things. I'd like to finish up before I leave. Have an appointment at noon, the mortuary.
Surely, go right ahead.
A few books, knickknacks, personal things of Dorothy's. Foolish woman, I gave her credit for more sense.
Now, about this man Reynolds, Miss Wagner.
I saw through him right from the start. I tried to tell Dorothy. He was a fortune hunter, money hungry. Of course, she wouldn't listen. She always knew better.
Charles R. Reynolds, is that the name you knew him by, ma'am?
Yes, that's right. Dorothy and I met him one Sunday night in the hotel dining room. Two of us always had dinner at the hotel Sunday nights every Sunday.
That's the hotel out in Wilshire you told us about?
That's correct. It'll be exactly a month this coming Sunday. He came up to our table and introduced himself, claimed he knew my father when he was alive. Dad owned some big packing plants in the East. He died 9 years ago, left the estate to Dorothy and me.
I see. Would you have anything to add to the description that you gave us on Reynolds, Miss Wagner? I mean, can you think of anything unusual about him at all? Scars, peculiar mannerisms, anything like that?
No, nothing special. Dressed well, as I say, apparently cultured, well-traveled.
Mm-hmm.
He was handsome enough, attractive. I knew he was only after our money, though, playing up to Dorothy that way, kissing her hand, taking her out all the time. Probably would have tried the same thing with me. It's lucky I knew better.
How did you after the first meeting with him, Miss Wagner? Did you start dating your sister Dorothy right away?
Yes, the next night. Called here at our home and asked Dorothy to the theater. I think he was going to ask me, but he was too smart for that. I knew him for what he was. Imagine that. Poems Dorothy wrote in high school. Love poems. Silly. She never did get it out of her head.
You and your sister lived alone here in the house, did you, ma'am?
Yes, Dorothy and I and the maid. I don't want to stay here after what's happened, though. I'm going to my cousin's in Vermont. Never want to see this place again.
Yes, ma'am, I can understand. How soon after you met Reynolds did he marry your sister?
A little over 2 weeks. He'd been seeing her almost every night, taking her out dancing to the theaters, big dinners, bringing her home late. They'd sit here in the living room. I could hear them from my bedroom upstairs laughing, him telling her how beautiful she was. 42-year-old woman, imagine that.
You're about the same age your sister was?
Just about. A little older. People always took us for twins, though. Here's a snapshot of me taken in my 20s. The boy with me there, he wanted to marry me. Our money, of course, that's all he wanted. Too bad. Dorothy never seemed to realize that about men. Girls from wealthy families, they have to be careful.
We understand Reynolds took your sister out of town to be married, is that right?
Yes, Las Vegas. Reynolds had told her his bank funds were tied up temporarily in a Canadian bank. He wrote Dorothy a check for $10,000, and she gave him her check for the same amount. He said he wanted to book reservations for a round-the-world trip for both of them.
I see.
The same day Dorothy gave him the check, he cashed it. The bank called her about it, and she said it was perfectly all right. An hour after he cashed it, Reynolds disappeared. No trace of him. Of course, his check's worthless. We found that out.
Mm-hmm. And you figure that's the only reason your sister took her own life?
There's no other reason. Wasn't the money so much. Dorothy has her share of the estate. It's a shame, I suppose. Awful shame. Disappointment. She should have known better, a woman her age.
Had your sister ever been married before, Miss Wagner?
Yes. When she was 18. Ran off to Chicago and married a young fellow. She claimed she loved him, too. Naturally, he was after our money. My father and I went and brought her home. We had the marriage annulled. It was that way all her life. 6 men. They brought Dorothy nothing but misery. And this was the last, this Charles Reynolds.
How about his background, ma'am, his business connections? Did he ever mention any of that to you or your sister?
Claimed he had interests all over. South America, Australia. Seemed to have plenty of money. Guess his kind always has. Do you think you'll find him?
We're going to try, Miss Wagner.
Dorothy went upstairs to her bedroom and stayed there. She looked so strange. She took out some pressed flowers from a book. Some boy had given them to her once years ago. Don't know who. She just sat on the edge of her bed and stared at them, old pressed flowers. Next morning, the maid came upstairs, and Dorothy was lying on the floor. Empty bottle of pills next to her. Awful disgrace. Never happened before in our family.
Mm-hmm. If you don't mind, Miss Wagner, we'd like to get as many particulars about this man Reynolds as you can remember.
There. That's the last. I don't know what else to tell you, officer. All I know is I was young when Dorothy was young. I could have had a man if I wanted. But I didn't run off when I was 18 to marry a boy. I knew my duty. It wasn't proper. It wasn't a love. I didn't run off as a middle-aged woman to marry a fortune hunter either. What made her do it?
I wouldn't know, ma'am. She was your sister.
What kind of a man was he? What kind of a mind? Making love, kissing her, just to take her money. Imagine selling somebody with a kiss.
Well, it's not the first time, ma'am.
Is that so?
Look it up. You'll find it in the Bible. 11:18 a.m. We continued to interview the victim's sister for another 40 minutes, and then we left the Wagner home, drove back to the office, and continued our investigation of the suspect, Charles R. Reynolds. As far as we were concerned, the criminal was new to us, but the crime wasn't. The marriage racket's as old as any con game on earth, and as con games go, it's one of the lowest. It trades on one of the most natural and normal instincts a man or a woman has, a desire for companionship, a home, and a family. And for the sake of an easy dollar, it betrays the victim and the instinct ruthlessly, regardless of the consequences. In the case of 42-year-old heiress Dorothy Wagner, the disappointment was too much to cope with. For her, the marriage game ended in the front parlor of a mortuary on South Hoover Street. For the suspect, Charles Reynolds, it had continued to be a paying business until he was stopped. After homicide detail completed their investigation of the case and it was definitely determined that Dorothy Wagner took her own life, the matter was turned over to us. 11:50 a.m. We got off a request to Las Vegas asking them for all the information on the marriage, and then I contacted the stats office and asked them to make a run on the suspect for us based on his detailed description and also on his method of operation. I went back down the hall and met Ed Jacobs at the R&I counter. How you doing?
Not too much luck, Joe. Forger didn't come up with anything either. Nothing on him in their files.
It's not much of a start, is it?
Apparently, this is the first time he's worked the town. Ours, we couldn't find anything on the name, not in the main file anyway.
What do you got there?
I asked John to check the correspondence file. He came up with this.
Out of Chicago.
Yeah, he came in over 3 months ago. Inquiry from their bunco detail. Suspect name right here. Frank L. Richland.
Same angle, marriage racket. Yeah, the MO's pretty close. Any description?
Oh, here. What do you think?
6'1", 170 pounds, gray wavy hair, blue eyes, fair complexion. That's fairly close, could be.
Here's the alias list Richland uses, as long as your arm. Here's one caught our eye. Reynolds. Alias George A. Reynolds, Thomas R. Reynolds, alias C.H. Reynolds, alias Charles R. Reynolds.
Wants on him for forgery, bunco, grand theft. A lot of experience. How about a mugshot on this one?
None attached. No L.A. contacts either.
Well, we better get off a wire to Chicago PD, have them send us what they can on him. Want to prove it one way or the other by the end of the week, maybe, huh?
Yeah. Copy his name down here. Frank L. Richland. Correspondence number C143732. Chicago case number D-612-32. Attention, Lieutenant Smichaels.
I'm just thinking, Ed. The last time anyone saw Reynolds, when was it? 10, 12 days ago?
10 days ago, yeah. September 23rd, same day he cashed the check and took a run out.
Well, if he's working the city for the first time, he must figure he's had some fair luck. 10,000 on the first try, that's pretty encouraging.
Yeah?
If he gets the idea the town's a gold mine, he's not going to pull out stakes here.
Figures. Probably trying to reach a couple other women with the same angle. Could be he's working on it now.
Well, that's the problem.
What do you mean?
The women. Say he's been romancing 3 or 4 of them around town. He's got them all primed. How you going to warn a woman about a thief before her purse is gone? After getting off a wire to Chicago regarding the suspect, which was in addition to the broadcast and the APB we'd gotten out on him, Ed Jacobs and I continued checking out the various contacts that he'd made in the city. We checked stores where he shopped, banks where he allegedly did business, restaurants and hotels which he reportedly patronized. It took 3 days of dull, steady legwork. You can say it much faster than you can do it. All of the bank references, without exception, were falsified. Where he made purchases, it was strictly cash dealing. The same for the restaurants he'd frequented. Besides meager descriptions of the man, the restaurant employees weren't able to help us much. At one of the 2 hotels, where we learned he was a guest for a full month, we finally netted half a lead. One of the bellboys told us that the man known as Charles Reynolds seemed to be pretty friendly with the head waiter in the hotel dining room, a Henry Kingsbury. We located Kingsbury in the dining room in mid-afternoon, directing arrangements for a large private party to be held that night. Across the dance floor, the orchestra was on the bandstand rehearsing, the musicians in their shirt sleeves. Kingsbury was reserved and not too cooperative.
Yes, I was acquainted with Mr. Reynolds, no more than the other guests, though.
That's not the way we get it, Mr. Kingsbury. We hear you were pretty friendly with him.
Only as far as my job goes. That's my business, making people feel at home, making them comfortable.
We understand Reynolds was a pretty heavy tipper, is that right?
He always took good care of me and the boys. The waiters were very generous.
Did he expect anything special in return for the tips that he gave you?
I don't think I understand.
Oh, I think you do. How about it?
Well, he was always very good to us, all of us. I could hardly refuse.
Refuse what?
When he first moved into the hotel, he became friendly with me, introduced himself, gave me a good tip in advance to take care of him. First few nights here, he spent at the cocktail bar, meeting people, buying a few drinks, getting acquainted. Third or fourth night, that's when he asked me.
Yeah?
He said when some prominent women came into the dining room, wealthy women, would I point them out to him? Single women, of course. I couldn't see any harm in it. He put a $20 bill in my hand. I said, yes, I would. After all, we have to look out for ourselves.
Did he expect anything else for those tips?
I don't know. I don't think it would be right if I told you.
You know why we're here, Mr. Kingsbury. We leveled with him. We expect you to do the same with us.
Well, there was the two Wagner sisters. They came here every Sunday night for dinner, regular routine for them.
Yeah?
Mr. Reynolds was at the bar. He asked who they were, and I told him. He seemed impressed. He asked me to help with an introduction to them, and I did. Next afternoon, he came to me again. He said he was taking one of the Wagner sisters to dinner that night. It was important to him. He gave me another big tip. Said he wanted us to roll out the red carpet for him that night.
What'd that consist of?
Well, special consideration, the best treatment in the house, I was to act as if I'd known him for years. Well, it was a good tip. I did what he asked. As I say, we have to look out for ourselves.
This happened more than once today?
2 or 3 times, yeah. Miss Wagner, Dorothy Wagner, she seemed impressed. At the time, I didn't think anything was wrong with it.
You actually didn't know Reynolds, is that right? You'd never seen him before?
Well, I suppose, yes. I only found out later, though, reading the papers. I mean, what really happened. I didn't know what he was at the time.
You couldn't see what Reynolds was up to? You didn't know what he was doing?
No, naturally not. He was a good tipper. That's all I know. It was the money. We have to look out for ourselves.
Yeah.
I felt sorry about Miss Wagner. I went to the funeral. They couldn't say I'm to blame, could they? What happened? I mean, it's not on my conscience. You wouldn't say so, would you?
She's dead, mister. You figure it. Thursday, October 13th. The investigation continued. Still no sign of the suspect. We got an answer from Las Vegas and also from the Chicago PD's bunco detail on our inquiries. They enclosed mugshots and fingerprint classification of the suspect, Frank Richland, alias Charles R. Reynolds. The pictures were shown to witnesses and acquaintances who'd known the suspect, and they definitely established Frank Richland and Charles Reynolds as one and the same person. We got out a supplementary APB containing the latest information on the suspect. Saturday, October 15th, we got our second complaint on the marriage bunco artist, this time from the proprietress of a small chain of lunch counters in the San Pedro area, a Miss Hagar Lindstrom. Ed and I drove down to the harbor area, where we interviewed her at one of her lunch counters. She identified Richland's mugshot. Her story of the marriage swindle matched closely with that of the previous victim, Dorothy Wagner.
Yeah, he was a fine gentleman, Mr. John Richland. I don't know what happened. I don't know what to say.
He told you he was from England, Miss Lindstrom, is that right?
Yeah, he talked like Englishman. He could speak good English, like from London or someplace. Says he builds boats, big ones.
I beg your pardon, ma'am?
Big boats.
Oh, yes.
He told me that's his business. He said he had lots of money. We would sail around the world on a honeymoon. Maybe he will come back still. I hope so.
I wouldn't count on that, Miss Lindstrom. Would you tell us this, please? How'd you happen to meet this man, Richland?
At the hotel up the street. The big hotel. I can show it to you. The one on Jackson Street.
Yes, ma'am.
They seem to know he was a rich man. Nice clothes he wore. He spent money a lot. When we got married, we spent lots of money.
Where were you married, ma'am?
We went down to Mexico. One weekend we went down there and we got married. It was romantic. Very nice. Even Lars liked it.
Who's that, ma'am?
Lars. That's him down the counter there. Lars, my brother.
Oh, well, your brother went along with you when you got married, is that right?
Lars and I go every place together. I don't do anything without Lars. Mr. Richland was nice about it. He didn't seem to mind Lars. Just a minute, they call him. Lars? Huh? Lars? Lars and I run the business together at the soda fountains we have. It's a long time. We have worked at it. Hard work.
Yes, ma'am, I guess so.
We make good living, not easy, though. That's why it was so bad. Mr. Richland, $3,000 he took.
Ja,
These are the police, Lars. They want to know about Mr. Richland.
How do you do?
How are you, sir? No, he was no good. When they find him, they hit him.
Now, the $3,000 he got from you, ma'am, how did that work? I mean, did you give him the money, lend it to him? Just what was it?
When we came back from Mexico from being married, Mr. Richland and me and Lars, he said he was waiting for money from his bank in New York. Mr. Richland said that. He wrote me a check for $3,000. I gave him our check for $3,000. Even Lars thought it was all right. Didn't you, Lars?
Yeah, it was crazy. His check was no good. He beat him up, they punched him good.
It's quite a bit of money, Miss Lindstrom. What kind of a story did he give you?
He would buy the tickets for a honeymoon trip. That's what he said. A long trip together. Romantic. Mr. Richland and me and Lars. He didn't mind Lars coming along either. Did he, Lars?
No, he didn't mind.
Now, this Richland disappeared right after he cashed your check, is that
Yes,
right?
sir. He got the money and he was gone. 6 days ago. We never hurt him. I don't know why he did this to us. I thought he loved me. I thought he was my husband.
Mm-hmm. We haven't seen or heard anything of him since he disappeared?
Not me nor Lars. But maybe we know. That's why we call you officers.
Yes, ma'am?
We have this friend downtown, James Svensson. He met Mr. Richland once when he was here.
Mm-hmm.
Svensson called Lars on the telephone. He said he saw Mr. Richland downtown, going into the hotel.
Are you sure it was Richland?
Yeah, he said he thought so.
How long ago did you see him?
Last night.
We got on the phone right away and talked to the friend of the Lindstroms, James Swenson. He gave us the name and location of the downtown hotel where he thought he'd seen the suspect, Richland, the night before. Ed called the hotel and checked with the desk clerk.
Yeah, that's right. Fairly tall, wavy gray hair, fair complexion. Might be registered as John Richland. That's right. Okay, we'll check with you later. Bye.
Any luck?
Guy registered as Harold Richland. Descriptions match.
He's still there?
Checked out this morning.
You are listening to Dragnet, authentic stories of your police force in action. Compare Fatima with any other king-size cigarette.
1. Fatima's length filters the smoke 85 millimeters for your protection.
2. Fatima's length cools the smoke for your protection.
3. Fatima's length gives you those extra puffs, 21% longer than standard cigarette size.
And in Fatima, you get an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality.
To show our confidence in Fatima, we make this money-back guarantee to every king-size cigarette smoker.
Buy a pack of Fatimas. Enjoy Fatima quality, extra mildness, and superbly blended tobaccos.
If you're not convinced Fatima is better than the king-size cigarette you're now smoking, just return the pack in the unsmoked Fatimas before August 1st, 1952, and we'll give you your money back plus postage. Fatima, Box 37, New York 1.
Remember, each king-size Fatima gives you an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality.
Switch to Fatima today. Best of all, king-size cigarettes.
Saturday, October 15th, 2:30 p.m. Ed Jacobs and I drove back downtown to the hotel where the bunco suspect, Richland, supposedly had been staying. The desk clerk definitely identified his mugshot and told us that the man registered as Harold Richland had checked out a few minutes before 9 a.m. that morning. No forwarding address. We examined the room he'd been staying in, talked to the residents and the employees of the hotel, but we failed to come up with a single lead as to the suspect's whereabouts. During the week that followed, we received 3 different kickbacks on the all points we'd gotten out on Richland. We checked each one of them out, but they failed to materialize into anything. We stayed on it. October 19th, Wednesday, 7:50 a.m.
Morning. Hi.
What's doing?
Charlie Frost called from forgery and went over to talk to him and came up with something on the Richland thing.
Yeah, what's that?
Picked up a woman last night, name of Helen Stokes. Got a good-sized record, checks, bunco records.
Yeah.
Got her this time on a check beef. She wrote one for $3,500.
Yeah, well, how's it tie in with us?
Check was made out to Harold Richland.
8:15 a.m. We signed out, drove over to the main jail, and had the forgery suspect, Helen Stokes, brought to one of the interrogation rooms. She was a dark-haired, fairly attractive woman in her early 30s. As a bunco artist, she apparently knew her trade pretty well. She was relaxed and talkative. She told us Richland had introduced himself to her at a Palm Springs resort the week before.
When did the business of the check come up?
As soon as we got back in town, he gave me the story. His money was in a New York bank. I played along with the gag. He wrote me a piece of wallpaper for $3,500. I did the same for him. What's the difference? Nobody hurt. Both checks, solid rubber.
Maybe you forget, ma'am. There's a law against it.
It's only a gag. I told you that. I would have loved to have seen his face when he found out the check was a phony. You don't think they're going to push the charge against me, do you?
No, we've already told you, miss. You wrote a bad one. There's a law against it.
I was only stringing him along. I knew his check was a phony, too. I didn't have anything to gain. Look, suppose I help you find him. Will you give me a hand on this? See I get a break?
We can't make any promises. You cooperate, help us find Richland, be taken into consideration.
All right, you're on. You can tell Loverboy I tipped you.
You know where Richland is now?
I can come close to it.
How do you mean?
I know where he'll be next week.
On further questioning, Helen Stokes told us that on one occasion, while she was at Palm Springs with Richland, she prowled his hotel room, went through his personal effects, and read his correspondence. She told us that she read one letter from a friend of Richland's inviting him for a visit the week of October 31st. She also noted Richland's answer accepting the invitation. She said the friend's name was Maurice Archer, and that the letter came from an Ocean Boulevard address in the beach town of Venice. We went back to the office, ran Archer's name through R&I, and found out that he had a previous criminal record of petty theft and grand theft. We located him at an Ocean Boulevard address and brought him in for interrogation. If there was any trouble, he wanted no part of it. After talking to him only a few minutes, he broke down and told us where we could find Richland, an address out near the end of Melrose Avenue. It was an apartment court. The suspect was registered in one of the rear cottages under the name of Reynolds. He wasn't at home. Ed and I went on stakeout inside the cottage. We waited. 6:30 p.m.
Somebody coming in?
Yeah. Hold it right there, Mr. Police Officers.
What's this?
Hands out in the open. Come on up.
I don't understand this.
Want to shake him down, Ed?
Yeah. All right, it's clean.
Look, I don't know what you want, officers, but this is a mistake.
Your name Charles Reynolds?
Reynolds? No, my name's Richland.
That'll do. Let's go.
No, just a minute, please. What am I accused of? Who's accusing me?
Last pigeon you had lined up. She wanted us to tell you. Helen Stokes.
Stokes. Phony dame. You can't believe her, officer. She's phony. She's nothing but a con artist.
It's a good reason to believe her.
What?
Takes one to know one. 7:05 p.m. After checking through the cottage, Ed and I drove Richland downtown and took him to the interrogation room. He'd admit nothing. We called Miss Wagner, the sister of his first victim, and she was still in town. She agreed to come down to the office to confront the suspect. So did the second victim, Hagar Lindstrom, and her brother, Lars. Cars were sent out to pick them up. At a special show-up, Richland was picked out as the guilty man. We took him back to the interrogation room. Miss Wagner was the first one called in. She again identified Richland, alias Reynolds, as the man who had married and swindled her sister, Dorothy.
All right, Miss Wagner, that'll be all. Thanks very much for coming in.
Yes, all right. Thank you.
Look, I don't know that woman. I'm not trying to be stubborn, but I'm afraid you're wrong. I'm not the man you want.
Lindstrom's are outside, Joe, waiting.
All right, bring him in.
Miss Lindstrom? Mr. Lindstrom, come in, please.
Miss Lindstrom? Mr. Lindstrom?
Yeah, it's him.
No. I don't know you. I've never seen you before.
You married me young. You wanted to be my husband, you said that. Why did you want to hurt me?
Sorry, I don't know her.
You said for you and me and Lars to go on the boat, honeymoon around the world. You and me and Lars, you said all those things. Why did you want to hurt us?
No, why? That enough for you?
I don't know what they're talking about.
They bait you up.
Take it easy, Mr. Lindstrom.
Lars.
Lies. He said we all go around the world, honeymoon. All right. Get him out of here, huh?
Okay, Mr. Lindstrom. Thanks.
It's no good, Lars. Come.
Yeah, thief.
Out this way, please.
Yeah, find him. Hit him.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right.
All right, Richland, you ready to give us a statement?
All right, I'll tell you. You can't blame me for that one. You wouldn't have gone through with that deal yourself. Nobody would have.
What's wrong? Nice-looking girl.
Sure, I don't mean that.
What do you mean?
That big clown, her brother Lars.
Yeah?
How'd you like to take that along on a honeymoon?
The story you have just heard was true. The names were changed to protect the innocent.
On January 14th, trial was held in Superior Court, Department 88, City and County of Los Angeles, State of California. In a moment, the results of that trial.
Now, here is our star, Jack Webb.
Thank you, George Fenneman. Friends, the reason Fatima can make the money-back guarantee you heard earlier can be summed up in 2 words. Fatima quality. Just prove Fatima quality yourself. Just compare Fatima with any other king-size cigarette. Fatima's length filters the smoke 85 millimeters, cools the smoke, all for your protection. You get those extra puffs because Fatima is 21% longer than standard cigarette size. And Fatima gives you an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality. Prove it today. Buy Fatima.
Frank Richland was tried and convicted of 2 counts of grand theft and 3 counts of forgery of a fictitious name. After serving his term in the state penitentiary at San Quentin, California, he is to be released to Chicago authorities for prosecution. Grand theft is punishable by imprisonment for not less than 1, nor more than 10 years. Forgery of a fictitious name is punishable by imprisonment from 2 to 14 years. You have just heard Dragnet, a series of authentic cases from official files. Technical advice comes from the Office of Chief of Police W.H. Parker, Los Angeles Police Department. Heard tonight were Barney Phillips and Virginia Gregg. Script by Jim Moser. Music by Walter Schumann. Hal Gibney speaking.
Fatima Cigarettes, best of all king-size cigarettes, has brought you Dragnet, transcribed from Los Angeles. February 18th, hear the Gala City Service Silver Radio Jubilee on NBC. The story you are about to hear is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Fatima Cigarettes, best of all king-size cigarettes, brings you Dragnet on both radio and television.
You're a detective sergeant. You're assigned a robbery detail. A jewelry salesman is slugged and robbed of $20,000 in precious stones. After months of investigation, you finally discover the man responsible for the holdup. You've got the evidence to prove him guilty. Your job, bring him in. Fatima, America's first largest-selling blended cigarette. Now, best of all king-size cigarettes.
Prove it yourself today. Compare Fatima with any other king-size cigarette.
1. Fatima's length filters the smoke 85 millimeters for your protection.
2. Fatima's length cools the smoke for your protection.
3. Fatima's length gives you those extra puffs, 21% longer than standard cigarette size.
And in Fatima, you get an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality.
Definitely the best quality in its class, but the same price as the cigarette you are now smoking.
Buy Fatima in the bright, sunny yellow pack. Best of all king-size cigarettes.
Dragnet, the documented drama of an actual crime. For the next 30 minutes, in cooperation with the Los Angeles Police Department, You will travel step by step on the side of the law through an actual case transcribed from official police files. From beginning to end, from crime to punishment, Dragnet is the story of your police force in action.
It was Thursday, July 18th. It was sultry in Los Angeles. We were working the day watch out of robbery detail. My partner's Ed Jacobs. The boss is Captain Didion. My name's Friday. It was 1:35 p.m. when we got back to the city hall, the interrogation room.
Sit down, Mr. Garvey.
Yes, all right. You want to call the captain, Ed? Let him know we're back?
Okay.
Thanks.
I'd still like to know what this is all about, Sergeant, dragging me down here in the middle of the day. I've got an office.
Just a minute, Mr.
Yeah, I just got back. All of them? Good. Yeah, interrogation room, right?
The others check in yet?
Yeah, they're all back. Worked out fine.
Would you please explain what this is about, why you've brought me down here?
We think you know why.
I don't. I haven't any idea. You take me away from my store on a busy day. You put a police guard on it. You insist on bringing me down here. What's it all about? Tell me.
No, you tell us, Mr. Garvey.
Tell you about what?
The jewel robbery 9 months ago, that holdup.
What holdup? My store hasn't been
We're talking
robbed.
about your friend, Thomas Ashley.
Ashley? What about him?
We think you remember it 9 months ago, parking lot back of the building down on Poet Street.
Oh, sure. Some hold-up man slugged him, stole his case of samples. I remember it now. Poor Tom, the thief made a big haul, didn't he?
Unset diamonds, $20,000 worth.
I remember it now. I don't think Tom's gotten over it yet. I was a jewelry salesman for the same company at the time, you know, the same company Tom was working for.
Yeah, we know all that.
Some of the big bosses thought Tom had a hand in it. They figured it was a put-up job. Nothing was further from the truth.
That's so.
Sure, I know Tom. He's a close friend of mine. He wouldn't be mixed up in a deal like that. Tom and I worked out of the same office for years. We've had him over the house for dinner. We've even been on vacations together. He's one of the most honest men I know.
You sure of all this, Sonny?
Of course I'm sure. And that isn't why you called me down here, is it? You don't think Tom had anything to do with that robbery, do you? You don't think he was in on it?
He had nothing to do with it. I think you know that as well as we do.
Then why am I here? There's nothing I can tell you about the holdup. Only what I heard from Tom, what I read in the news.
No, you can tell us a lot more, Garvey. We didn't bring you here just past time of day.
Tom was slugged and his sample case of stones were taken. That's all I can tell you.
You're a liar, mister.
What?
You engineered the whole thing. We know it, and so do you.
Was this some kind of a joke? If it is, I think it's in very
long way from a joke, Garvey. You planned the job. You got the loot. We can give you chapter and verse.
I really think you're serious. You think I robbed Tom?
We're past the thinking stage, Garvey. We already told you. We know you robbed him.
Now, wait a minute. This thing is ridiculous. The whole idea is ridiculous. I don't know who gave you the so-called information on me, but it's wrong. There's nothing further from the truth.
Nobody gave us the information. We got it ourselves.
You're really serious, are you? I robbed Tom, and you can prove I did.
You're getting the idea.
I don't know what to say. It's fantastic. I robbed my best friend Tom Ashley 9 months ago. I have $20,000 worth of diamonds, and you can prove it.
Every bit of it. What about it?
I think you're out of your mind. My name's George Garvey. You sure I'm the man you want? There couldn't be a mistake?
No, there's no mistake.
This thing would be funny if I didn't think you were serious. Let me ask you just one question. Maybe that'll clear it up for you.
Yeah?
If I held up Tom Ashley, how is it he didn't recognize me?
You know better than that, Garvey.
What?
You didn't hold up Tom Ashley yourself. You had someone do it for you.
Oh, cloak and dagger, huh? I'm afraid this is getting a little too wild for me, Sergeant. Maybe you can waste time making ridiculous charges. I can't. I'm going back to my store.
It's a weak bluff, mister. It's not going to do it.
Excuse me. Are you sure you two men haven't been drinking?
Sit down, Mr. Garvey.
I told you I'm going back to my store.
Sit down.
Look, you have no right to keep me here. These are ridiculous charges. You think I'm one of those cheap hoodlums you're used to dealing with.
No, now come off it, mister. You got a $5,000 car and a $40,000 home. That doesn't rate you as special treatment. You're a thief, and you know it as well as we do.
I don't have to take this from you.
You haven't got much choice. We just finished 5 months' legwork proving it.
Proving what?
All right, now sit down there. You engineered that holdup. We know who you got to do it. We know how it was carried out. We know how you planned on disposing of the diamonds. We know who your fence was. We know what the split was. We know what you did with part of the money. We know how much you got left.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
What can I say? I don't even know what you're talking about.
Any way you want it, Mr. Garvey.
Maybe you'd like to tell me why I did all this.
You know it better than we do.
No, I mean it. Tell me.
You weren't making enough money at your job to suit yourself. Suit your wife either.
That's pretty good. Marilyn would get a big kick out of that.
All right, fella. We can wait it out as long as you want. We spent 9 months on this already. Another few days aren't going to make that much difference.
Just as a matter of curiosity, how'd you first start off on this tangent? Whatever gave you the idea that I had anything to do with the holdup?
When you started to spend money. New car, new office for yourself, fur coat for your wife, transferred your 2 children to that private school.
And that makes a hold-up man out of me because I wanted to send my kids to a better school?
Where'd the money come from? Can you explain that?
Don't you think that's my business, Sergeant, where I get my money, what I do with it?
Not when you get it stealing.
I'm afraid you're going just a little too far. You insist I'm a thief. I'm going to insist you prove it.
All right. Have a look over here, Mr. Garvey.
Yeah?
Some of the reports on the investigation. Reams of them. They cover everything from the time of the jewel robbery up to late yesterday. It's all right there. Everything from the crime report to signed statements.
Well, how would that concern me?
3/4 of the stuff concerns you. Have a look for yourself.
I still can't get it straight in my mind. What makes you think I had anything to do with that robbery?
You know what this is, Mr. Garvey, this machine right here?
No. Some kind of recording apparatus?
That's right. It's a tape recorder.
You've been taking down this conversation, and why?
No, not this one. We've been recording every conversation that took place in your office for the last 4 months, every word.
What do you mean?
Just that, Mr. Garvey. Every time you talked on the phone, every visitor you had, it's all down on tape. 25 reels of it.
Interesting. Is that supposed to frighten me?
No, we don't care if it frightens you or not. Something else here.
Yes?
Reports on what you've been doing for the last 4 months. Daily reports, every movement you made.
That's so.
Everywhere you went, everybody you talked to, everything you did. Want to hear a sample?
This must be some kind of a joke. That's the only explanation I can think of.
May 12th, Thursday. Sergeants Bitteroff and Rafferty. Those are the 2 officers who were tailing you at the time. You checked in at your new office at 9:38 a.m. At 10:03 a.m., you had a visitor, Kenneth Tyson. You talked to him in your office. Conversations recorded. Tyson left at 10:18 a.m. At 10:32 a.m., you left your office.
If you're trying to impress me, I'm afraid it isn't working out very well.
You care for a cigarette, Garvey?
No, thanks. I have my own.
All right.
Well, I've wasted enough time. Exactly what's the point of all this?
Pretty simple. You're responsible for a robbery. We can prove it. We're giving you the chance to make a statement.
It's nonsense.
Is it?
Of course, people following me, checking everything I do, where I spend my money, where I send my kids to school. What's it all about? It doesn't make any sense.
All right, Mr. Garvey. We've said it before. We can wait it out as long as you want.
Look, let's get this thing straight. Let's go back to the beginning and take it step by step.
That's fine.
The holdup was last fall, wasn't it? Sometime in October?
October 7th, Monday, 5:20 in the afternoon.
All right. Now, just what am I supposed to have done? None of your vague references about a new coat for my wife or where I send my kids to school. Let's have some facts.
Joe?
All right, Mr. Garvey. You went to work as a jewelry salesman for the company 10 years ago. Your friend Tom Ashley, the victim, started the same year. The 2 of you have been pretty close friends.
That's right. I told you that.
I will skip the rest of your background for now. 2 weeks before the robbery on September 24th, you had a meeting with a Kenneth Tyson. You met in the cafeteria on South Broadway. Tyson's 19 years old. Lives with an older sister. He works in a gas station on Olympic Boulevard. He's done some work in your car for you. That's how you happen to know him.
Yes, I think I remember the boy. I don't know him well, though. I don't recall the meeting either.
Oh, you know the boy very well. At the time of the meeting, you promised him $1,000 if he'd hold up your friend Tom Ashley.
Ridiculous.
Tyson agreed to it, and you briefed him on the plan. The following day, you gave him a gun. .32 caliber Smith & Wesson, serial number 362744.
Nonsense. Where did you get that information?
Tyson.
Well, he's lying. Believe me, if he told you that, he's lying. Is he the one who robbed Tom?
October 7th, at your direction, he was in the parking lot behind the Hunter Crosswell building. Tom actually came out to get in his car. He had his case of sample diamonds with him. Tyson held him up, slugged him, took the stones, and got away.
Of course, it's obvious. Tyson's trying to say I put him up to it. He's trying to get out of it that way.
Afraid not, Mr. Garvey. Boy couldn't have carried off the holdup by himself.
Well, of course he could. It's obvious he's trying to cover up.
There were 6 people in the company you worked for who knew that on Mondays Ashley always took the case of sample diamonds along when he made his calls. Only on Monday you were one of the people who knew that.
I suppose you've considered the other 5 people.
They were all checked out at the time. They were all cleared, you along with them.
But I'm not clear anymore, is that it? This young hoodlum Tyson, you're willing to take his word over mine?
After the robbery, he took the case of diamonds to you. That was the next day. You paid him $500 and promised him the other $500 when he got rid of the stones.
Oh, I suppose I've gotten rid of them, or do I still have them?
2 months after the holdup, he contacted a fence up in San Francisco. You drove up there and sold him some of the stones, and he broke them up and sold them. We know who he sold them to. We know what he got for him.
Well, this fence, he's supposed to be another good friend of mine?
You're still doing business with him. His name's Fred Lawrence.
It's a new one on me. I don't know any Fred Lawrence. Can't even recall the name.
Well, maybe this will help you, Mr. Garvey. Listen to him on the tape recorder. It's reel 4, isn't it, Ed?
Yeah, I think so. All labeled there, right on the back of the box.
Yeah, here we are.
Well, what's all this about?
Phone conversation, Mr. Garvey. One of the things we recorded from your office. I told you about it before. Let's see. This one was on March 18th.
I always thought wiretapping was against the law, or do you pay any attention to that?
We didn't tap your telephone line. We recorded everything from dictographs we installed in your store and back in your office. They started recording the day you moved in. That was the 1st of March, wasn't it?
I don't know why you're telling me. I can sue you for that, you know. I can sue you for your last dollar.
All we're concerned with right now is Fred Lawrence. You say you don't know him. Let's have you listen to this. This was recorded March 18th in your office. Okay? Here we go. Go.
Yeah, Marion. Mr. Lawrence? Yeah, sure. Put him on. Hi, Fred. How are you? I'm good. No, everything's fine. No heat at all. Tyson? No, he's all right. Believe me, he's a good kid. Nice. All right, where? Oh, I don't know. It might not be so good if you sleep down here. Only 8 o'clock, 8:30. Okay, fine. Suppose 8:30 is you make it. Bye, Fred. Bye.
Mr. Garvey, you recognize that? How about it, Garvey?
I understand they can do clever things with tape recorders nowadays. There's a way of piecing words together, isn't there? They can record your voice and then fix the tape, take a simple sentence and change the words around to mean just the opposite.
You can examine the tape if you like. We didn't make a splice in it. All you'll find is the usual factory splice. It's just where it comes from the manufacturer.
Well, what difference does it make anyway? There's nothing criminal about that conversation. Nothing at all.
You told us a few minutes ago you didn't know Fred Lawrence. You never heard of him on that recording. It sounds like you know him pretty well.
Fairly common name, wouldn't you say? Must be quite a few Fred Lawrences. I didn't happen to remember the name right off.
How about Tyson?
What?
Tyson. You told us you didn't know him well at all.
I don't.
Well, it didn't sound that way on that tape, did it? You were telling Lawrence that he was all right. You said, believe me, he's a good kid. Now, what you said, now how about it, mister?
How about what? Is this some kind of a frame? What are you trying to make me say?
We're not going to make you say anything, Garvey. We work robbery detail. That's the job, robberies. They pay us to clean them up.
I can pay you.
What?
Never mind, I didn't mean that. I meant I pay my taxes, I pay your salaries. I help to, anyway. I don't know why I have to be treated like this.
No reason to make a big headache out of this for anybody, Garvey. Now, you engineered a holdup. We can prove that. We're giving you a chance to make a statement. That's all we want here.
I've got nothing to say. Make a statement about what? All you're going on is hearsay, circumstantial evidence. You can't say I planned that robbery.
Well, you admit you know Tyson. You know him well.
I don't. I admit nothing.
What about phone conversation?
It's a fake. They're phoning those things up all the time. You know it as well as I do.
You admitted you know Fred Lawrence. Prove that from the recording.
I admit nothing.
You don't even know Tyson. Is that what you want to say?
I know him, that's all. He worked on my car a couple of times. I don't know him well.
All right, sir. I'd like to play you another recording.
It's a waste of time. I haven't got the whole day to spend here. I got to get back to my store. I've got a business to operate.
Well, this won't take very long. Yeah, here we are. April 5th.
A lot of foolishness anyway. How do I know you made those recordings? You could have gotten actors. Maybe you made them up yourself. There weren't any dictographs. You make those things.
There were dictographs, Mr. Garvey. Remember, before you moved into that new suite of offices, you had them redecorated?
Yes.
There were sound technicians from our crime lab out there working side by side with the painters and carpenters. Installed dictographs in your store and back in your offices. They bugged the entire place.
Wiretapping. I'll bring this into court if it's the last thing I do.
Look, now, we already told you, Mr. Garvey, it's not wiretapping. We didn't touch your phone lines. We didn't have to.
It's invasion of privacy. I'm going to take this into court.
Yeah, well, let's listen to this recording. Might clear up a few things.
Clear up what? What are you trying to prove?
Okay, Joe?
Yeah, it's coming in here now. Date on this is April 5th.
Yeah, Marion. Who? Tyson? Well, does he know I'm in? Yeah, okay, send him back. Yeah, come on in.
Hi, Mr. Garvey.
Yeah, how are you? Come on in, sit down.
Thanks.
How you doing anyway?
Pretty good. Trying to get a hold of you last week or so. Hard to do, I didn't bring much.
Pretty busy, I understand. This time of year, you know, it keeps you going.
No, I don't want to waste any time. I'd like to know how the deal's working out, though. Going back east to Albany next month, I'd like to get the rest of my money if I could.
Well, just like I told you the last time, Ken, I'm sending the stuff north. I hope to hear in a couple of days.
Yeah, I know. That's what you told me before. It was a pretty heavy job. I could use the money. I mean, if it wasn't so heavy, I wouldn't mind, but I got it coming, I think. Huh?
Of course you do, Ken. There's no question there. It's just that I hadn't got it right now. Believe me, you'd have it in a minute if it was mine again.
Yeah, but that was the agreement, wasn't it? 500 before the job, 500 after, and have them last October. That's a pretty good stretch.
Now, look, Ken, I told you the truth. I just haven't got it. Now, why don't you drop back in a week or so?
How about it, Mr. Garvey? What do you say to that?
It's ridiculous, that's all. It's an obvious fake.
You can look at the tape if you like, inspect it. You can check every one of those 25 reels. We'll play every one of them for you if you want.
Fakes, and they're bad ones at that. Now, look, I'll give you both a chance. Either you book me in on a charge or else release me. You try booking me in, and I'll sue you for false arrest. I'll break you. I'll sue you blind. I can promise you that.
Yeah?
Release me, and I'll get back to work. I'll forget all about it. Now, you name it. Which one? Book me in or release me?
Oh, that's fair enough. You're going to give us a choice, huh?
You bet it's fair. You could get in a lot of hot water. Now, it's up to you. Which one?
You ran a bad bluff, mister.
What?
We're booking you in.
You are listening to Dragnet, authentic stories of your police force in action. Compare Fatima with any other king-size cigarette.
1. Fatima's length filters the smoke 85 millimeters for your protection.
2. Fatima's length cools the smoke for your protection.
3. Fatima's length gives you those extra puffs, 21% longer than standard cigarette size.
And in Fatima, you get an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality.
To show our confidence in Fatima, we make this money-back guarantee to every king-size cigarette smoker.
Buy a pack of Fatimas. Enjoy Fatima quality, extra mildness, and superbly blended tobaccos.
If you're not convinced Fatima is better than the king-size cigarette you're now smoking, just return the pack and the unsmoked Fatimas before August 1st, 1952, and we'll give you your money back plus postage. Fatima, Box 37, New York 1.
Remember, each king-size Fatima gives you an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality.
Switch to Fatima today. Best of all, king-size cigarettes.
Thursday, 3:55 p.m. Ed Jacobs and I continued questioning the robbery suspect, Ernest Garvey. Despite the evidence at hand, he still refused to admit any knowledge of the $20,000 jewel theft 9 months before. The questioning went on. Garvey's answers became more and more confused. We kept pressing, laying out the case against him step by step. 4 p.m., 4:30. We stayed at it.
You must have taken quite a bit of money, didn't you, Garvey? Your wife's new fur coat, new car for yourself. Where'd he come from?
Now, look, there has to be an answer. Where'd that money come from?
Simple. I borrowed it.
Where'd you borrow it?
Some from friends, some from the bank. So I don't see how it concerns you.
How much money did you borrow?
Don't you think that's my business?
Wasn't it about $7,000? Is that about right?
Yeah. No, it was more. Well, what's the difference? It's my business.
You want to grab that folder, Ed? The one with the dark brown. That's it.
Got it.
Complete financial file on you, Mr. Garvey. Took us quite a few weeks getting this together. A lot of work.
You must like snooping in other people's affairs.
No, not especially. It's pretty dull. Here's a copy of your bank statement. It's photostat. It doesn't make much sense.
What do you mean?
Well, we checked your income for that month, amounted to $620.18. Your bank statement here shows you made deposits totaling $760 the same month. Now, how is that possible?
Well, for your information, I made a loan that month. That's probably some of the loan money I deposited. I quit my old job that time. I was going in business for myself. I needed the money to redecorate the new store and the office. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. The photostat's your loan papers right here. The loan was for $2,000. The month before that, February, he borrowed from another bank. Let's see, for $3,000. Made another one in April, too. That was for $1,500, different bank again.
That's right. Do we have to go over this line by line?
In 3 months, you made bank loans for $6,500. Besides that, in the same 3 months, you earned a total of $1,713.88. Together, that makes $8,213.88.
What's the point?
Copies of your bank statements, Garvey. You have 5 different savings accounts in 5 different banks. They show from February to April, the same 3 months, you made deposits of more than $11,000. Now, how do you explain that?
Garvey, any explanation?
It's almost 5 o'clock. Can I use the phone? I have to call my wife and let her know.
All right. We'll have to listen in on the extension. Conversation's going to be mine.
Go ahead. I don't care.
Okay. Dial 9 to get an outside line.
Oh,
Photostats is there for you to examine, Garvey.
I see him.
You want to give us an explanation? You only had $8,200. How could you bank $11,000? It had to come from somewhere, didn't it?
Purely a personal matter, that's all. I borrowed $3,000 from a brother of mine who lives back in Minnesota.
You'd already made 3 loans. Why'd you have to borrow from your brother? You mind telling us?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I do.
Well, that still doesn't balance the books, Mr. Garvey. You earned and borrowed $8,200. You got another $3,000 from your brother, you say. That's $11,200. You banked $11,000.
Yes, that's right. You always have to repeat.
That'd leave you with $200.
You and your family live for 3 months on $200, is that
Why not? That could easily be. A lot of people do it.
Yes, sir, but not your family.
I'm getting sick and tired of this. You trying to tell me you know my family better than I do, what they eat, what they spend, what it takes to support them?
We've been on this thing for 9 months, Garvey. We've put in a lot of hours. We know your family pretty well. If you like, I'll tell you the last time you ordered steak from the meat market when you paid your gas bill, the last time your wife bought a pair of shoes.
I guess this is standard procedure for you, huh? Threatening people.
We're not threatening you, Mr. Garvey. We're giving you facts.
Here's another file here. It took us over a month to get this one together. Complete record of your expenses from February 1st. Covers February, March, April, May, June.
I hope the police department has a good lawyer, Sergeant. You've got a fair warning.
You say you and your... I'm sorry, go ahead.
I hope the police department has a good lawyer, Sergeant. You've got fair warning. I'm going to sue you for your last hour.
When you say you and your family lived 3 months on $200, that doesn't jibe with what we've got here. Take a look if you want to. It's
lies, forgeries. It's all lies. I promise you.
Photostat of the receipt for your wife's coat, Garvey. $1,612.34. That includes the tax paid in full. Photostat of the contract for your new car. Down payment, $2,000. Liquor bill for the big party you threw in March 20th. Liquor bill, $387. Catering bill, $194. Full year's check for tuition, room, and board for your kids at the private school you sent them to, $1,864.07. Well, that's only the beginning, Garvey. Comes to a lot more than $200. Have you heard enough?
I better try to get my wife again. I have to let her know.
And you handle extension,
All right, yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Down now to get outside, Garvey.
Yeah, I know. Talking. I know I'm trying to get her, stupid.
Well, wait a couple of minutes. She'll get through.
Gabbing on the phone all day long, gab on the phone and play cards. That's all she ever does.
Got some more figures here for you, Garvey. Be a good idea if you hear them. Bills for 2 more parties you threw last month. Food bills.
Why do you have to keep pushing that stuff at me? So you've been sneaking around, finding out about my personal affairs. That's supposed to be good police work, is it? This is the kind
You carried
of
off a robbery, Garvey. We're giving you a chance to make a statement.
Why should I? What for? Give you a statement and have you twist it around, incriminate me? I haven't had anything to do with this kid Tyson. I better try that call.
No, we'll dial 9 first.
I know. You told me. Stupid. She ought to know I'm trying to get her.
What's the matter, Garvey? Don't forget dial 9.
One more before you ought to hear. I'll just play it.
I don't want to hear it.
I'll just play it for you. I think you ought to hear it.
That's the same reel there. Just fan it over there to that other part, Ed.
All right. Tyson, Mr. Garvey, same place, the office.
But you told me on the phone, you say you had the dope for me today. You said today, sure.
Now, wait a minute, Tyson. I didn't say that at all. I said maybe I'd have it for you. I didn't say definitely. Look, I can't give you what I haven't got.
I want the 500, Garvey. I need it. I stuck my neck out on a robbery job. I get 5 to life.
All right, Ed.
You'd be
Couldn't be any plainer. Now, what do you say?
Wait a minute. Just...
Dial 9.
Yeah. Satisfied. She never could be satisfied. Always more. She always had to have something else.
How do you mean, your wife?
Playing cards, gabbing on the phone, that's all. She just kept writing me day in, day out. I wasn't making enough money. She didn't have any clothes. Kids ought to go to a better school. We ought to have a new house. On and on. I ought to go in business for myself, make money, lots of money. Same thing, all the time. Talk. There's only so much you can take.
You figured the robbery'd solve the problem, is that it?
I guess so. I would have tried anything just to shut her up, get her off my back for a while. I guess you got Tyson out, the other man, too, Fred Lawrence.
Yeah, they were picked up this afternoon. Lawrence at the airport, Tyson on a show downtown, all three, all at the same time.
What about your wife, Garvey? She know you planned this robbery?
Oh, I didn't tell her. I think she knows, though. Pretty sure she does. Maybe she'll be satisfied now. The lousy money, she had to have it. Didn't even leave me enough to pay off that kid Tyson. Private school for the children, wall-to-wall carpets in the house, new dishwasher, new coat, new car, everything. She just had to have them. You want to take me, book me in? I don't care. Come on. We'll stop off down the hall and take your statement. Sure, I don't care. All right, let's go. Oh, hey, just a minute, huh?
Yeah?
It'll only take a minute. That's what I figured.
The story you have just heard was true. The names were changed to protect the innocent.
On November 4th, trial was held in Superior Court, Department 87, City and County of Los Angeles, State of California. In a moment, the results of that trial.
And now, here is our star, Jack Webb.
Thank you, George Fenneman. Friends, I make it a habit to carry 2 packs of Fatimas around with me. One's for my smoking, and the second one's for smokers I see with other king-size cigarettes. All I have to say is, here, compare Fatima. I know they're going to be sold on Fatimas the next time we meet. How about comparing Fatima yourself? You'll find Fatima's length filters the smoke 85 millimeters, cools the smoke, all for your protection. You get those extra puffs because Fatima is 21% longer than standard cigarette size. And Fatima gives you an extra mild and soothing smoke, plus the added protection of Fatima quality. Prove it today. Buy Fatima.
Ernest W. Garvey and Kenneth Tyson were tried and convicted of first-degree robbery, 1 count, and received sentences as prescribed by law. Fred Lawrence was tried and convicted of receiving stolen property, 1 count. First-degree robbery is punishable by imprisonment from 5 years to life. Receiving stolen property is punishable by a prison term of not more than 5 years. You have just heard Dragnet, a series of authentic cases from official files. Technical advice comes from the Office of Chief of Police W.H. Parker, Los Angeles Police Department. Heard tonight were Barney Phillips, Vic Perrin, and Eddie Firestone. Script by Jim Moser. Music by Walter Schumann. Hal Gibney speaking.
Fatima Cigarettes, best of all king-size cigarettes, has brought you Dragnet, transcribed from Los Angeles.
February 18th, hear the Gala City Service Silver Radio Jubilee on NBC.